I believe I've gotten through. Yep. Hello everybody, friends and sinners. I'm Max Calloway, and you've tuned in to a broadcast that somehow slipped past the pearly gates, took the down elevator, and set up shop in a warm glow of Hell's own transmitter. The air down here is pretty thick. The drinks are bottomless, and the company, well, let's just say it's an eternal networking event for the morally flexible. Tonight we follow Dante, a man brave enough, well, or dumb enough, to take the guided tour of the underworld, with none other than Virgil as his hell side travel agent. What you're about to hear has been heard 1 trillion times over. It was written 700 years ago, and while somehow still describes your last staff meeting perfectly. So kick back, keep your hands inside the gondola at all times, and remember, and hell, the Wi-Fi sucks, but the stories are unforgettable. Welcome to Dante's Inferno.
Midway on our life's journey, I found myself in dark woods, the right road lost. To tell about those woods is hard, so tangled and rough and savage that, thinking of it now, I feel the old fear stirring. Death is hardly more bitter. And yet, to treat the good I found there as well. I'll tell what I saw, though how I came to enter I cannot well say, being so full of sleep, whatever moment it was I began to blunder off the true path. But when I came to stop below a hill that marked one end of the valley that had pierced my heart with terror, I looked up toward the crest and saw its shoulders already mantled in rays of that bright planet that shows the road to everyone, whatever our journey. Then I could feel the terror begin to ease that churned in my heart's lake all through the night. As one still panting ashore from dangerous seas looks back at the deep he has escaped, my thought returned, still fleeing, to regard that grim defile that never left any alive who stayed in it. After I had rested my weary body a while, I started again across the wilderness, my left foot always lower on the hill, and suddenly a leopard. Near the place the way grew steep, lithe, spotted, quick of foot, blocking the path. She stayed before my face, and more than once she made me turn about to go back down. It was early morning still, the fair sun rising with the stars attending it, as when divine love set those beautiful lights into motion at creation's dawn, and the time of day and season combined to fill my heart with hope of that beast with festive skin, but not so much that the next sight wasn't fearful. A lion came at me, his head high as he ran, roaring with hunger so the air appeared to tremble. Then a grim she-wolf, whose leanness seemed to compress all the world's cravings that had made miserable such multitudes. She put such heaviness into my spirit I lost hope of the crest. Like someone eager to win, who tested by loss surrenders to gloom and weeps, so did that beast make me feel. As harrying toward me at a lope, she forced me back toward where the sun is lost. While I was ruining myself back down to the deep, someone appeared. One who seemed nearly to fade as though from long silence. I cried to his human shape in that great wasteland, "Living man or shade, have pity and help me, whichever you may be." "No living man, though once I was," he replied. "My parents both were Mantuans from Lombardy, and I was born sub Julio, the latter end. I lived in good Augustus's Rome, in the day of the false gods who lied. A poet, I hymned Anchises' noble son, who came from Troy, when superb Ilium in its pride was burned. But you, why go back down to such misery? Why not ascend the delightful mountain, source and principle that causes every joy?" "Then are you Virgil? Are you the font that pours so overwhelming a river of human speech?" I answered, shamefaced. "The glory and light are yours that poets follow. May the love that made me search your book in patient study avail me, master. You are my guide and author, whose verses teach the graceful style whose model has done me honor. See this beast driving me backward. Help me resist, for she makes all my veins and pulses shudder." A different path from this one would be best for you to find your way from this feral place, he answered, seeing how I wept. This beast, the cause of your complaint, lets no one pass her way, but harries all to death. Her nature is so malign and vicious, she cannot appease her voracity, for feeding makes her hungrier. Many are the beasts she mates. There will be more, until the hound comes who will give this creature a painful death. Not nourished by earthly fare, he will be fed by wisdom, goodness, and love. Born between Feltro and Feltro, he shall restore Low Italy, as Nisus fought to achieve, and Turnus, Euryalus, Camilla the maiden, all dead from wounds in war. He will remove this lean wolf, hunting her through every region till he has thrust her back to hell's abyss, where envy first dispatched her on her mission. Therefore, I judge it best that you should choose to follow me, and I will be your guide away from here and through an eternal place, to hear the cries of despair, and to behold the ancient tormented spirits as they lament in chorus the second death they must abide. Then you shall see those souls who are content to dwell in fire because they hope some day to join the blessed, toward whom, if your ascent continues, your guide will be one worthier than I. When I must leave you, you will be with her. For the emperor who governs from on high wills I not enter his city, where none may appear who lived like me in rebellion to his law. His empire is everything and everywhere, but that is his kingdom, his city, his seat of awe. Happy is the soul he chooses for that place. Poet, please, by the God you did not know, help me escape this evil that I face, and worse, lead me to witness what you have said, St. Peter's Gate, and the multitude of woes. Then he set out, and I followed where he led. Day was departing, and the darkening air called all earth's creatures to their evening quiet, while I alone was preparing as though for war, to struggle with my journey, and with the spirit of pity which flawless memory will redraw. O muses, O genius of art, O memory, whose merit has inscribed inwardly those things I saw, help me fulfill the perfection of your nature. I commenced. Poet, take my measure now. Appraise my powers before you trust me to venture through that deep passage where you would be my guide. You write of the journey Silvius, his father, made to immortal realms, although he stayed a mortal witness in his corruptible body, that the opponent of all evil bestowed such favor on him befits him, chosen for glory by highest heaven to be the father of Rome and of Rome's empire, later established holy, seat of great Peter's heir. You say he came to that immortal world, and things he learned there led to the papal mantle and triumph for him. Later, the chosen vessel too went and returned, carrying confirmation of that faith which opens the way with salvation at its end. But I? What cause, whose favor could send me forth on such a voyage? I am no Aeneas or Paul. Not I nor others think me of such worth, and therefore I have my fears of playing the fool to embark on such a venture. You are wise. You know my meaning better than I can tell. And then, like one who unchooses his own choice, and thinking again undoes what he has started, so I became. A nullifying unease overcame my soul on that dark slope, and voided the undertaking I had so quickly embraced. If I understand, the generous shade retorted, cowardice grips your spirit, which can twist a man away from the noblest enterprise, as a trick of vision startles a shying beast. To ease your burden of fear, I will disclose why I came here, and what I heard that compelled me first to feel compassion for you. It was a lady's voice that called me where I dwelled in Limbo. A lady so blessed and fairly featured, I prayed her to command me. Her eyes out-jeweled the stars in splendor. O generous Mantuan spirit, she began in a soft voice of angelic sound, whose fame lives still, that the world will still inherit as long as the world itself shall live. My friend, no friend of fortune, has found his way impeded on the barren slope, and fear has turned him round. I fear he may be already lost, unaided. So far astray, I've come from heaven too late. Go now, with your fair speech, and what is needed to save him. Offer the help you have to give before he is lost, and I will be consoled. I am Beatrice, come from where I crave to be again, who ask this. As love has willed, so have I spoken. And when I return before my Lord, he will hear your praises told. Then she was silent, and I in turn began. O Lady of goodness, through whom alone mankind exceeds what the sky's least circle can contain within its compass, so sweet is your command. Had I already obeyed, it would feel too late. But tell me how you so fearlessly descend to such a center, from that encompassing state you long to see again. You yearn for the answer deeply, she said, so I will tell in short how I can come to limbo, yet feel no terror. Fear befits things with power for injury, not things that lack such power. God the Creator has by his mercy made me such that I cannot feel what you suffer. None of this fire assails me. In heaven, a lady feels such pity for this impediment where I send you, severe judgment is broken by her grace on high. To Lucy she said, your faithful follower needs you. I commend him to you. Lucy, the foe of every cruelty, found me where I sat with Rachel of old, and urged me, Beatrice, true glory of God, can you not come to the aid of one who had such love for you he rose above the common crowd? Do you not heed the pity of his cries? And do your eyes not see death near him in a flood the ocean itself can boast no power to surpass? Never on earth was anyone spurred to motion so quickly, to seize advantage or fly from danger, as at these words I hurried here from heaven, trusting your eloquence, whose gift brings honor both to yourself and to all those who listen. Having said this, she turned toward me, the splendor of her eyes lucent with tears, which made me hasten to save you even more eagerly than before. And so I rescued you on the fair mountain where this beast blocked the short way up. Therefore, what is this? Why should you hold back? Why be a coward rather than bolder, freer? Since in the court of heaven, for your sake, 3 blessed ladies watch, and words of mine have promised a good as great as you might seek. As flowers, bent and shrunken by night, at dawn unfold and straighten on their stems to wake brightened by sunlight, so I grew strong again. Good courage coursing through my heart, I spoke like one set free. How full of true compassion was she who helped me. How courteous and quick were you to follow her bidding. And your narration has restored my spirit. Now on, for I feel eager to go with you and cleave to my first intention. From now we two will share one will together. You are my teacher, my master, and my guide. So I spoke, and when he moved, I followed after and entered on that deep and savage road. Through me you enter into the city of woes. Through me you enter into eternal pain. Through me you enter the population of loss. Justice moved my high maker in power divine, wisdom supreme, love primal. No things were before me not eternal. Eternal, I remain. Abandon all hope, you who enter here. These words I saw inscribed in some dark color over a portal. Master, I said, make clear their meaning, which I find too hard to gather. Then he, as one who understands, all fear must be left here, and cowardice die. Together we have arrived where I told you. Here you will behold the wretched souls who've lost the good of intellect. Then, with good cheer in his expression to encourage me, he placed his hand on mine. So, trusting to my guide, I followed him among things undisclosed. The sighs, groans, and laments at first were so loud, resounding through starless air, I began to weep. Strange languages, horrible screams, words imbued with rage or despair, cries as of troubled sleep or of a tortured shrillness. They rose in a coil of tumult, along with noises like the slap of beating hands, all fused in a ceaseless flail that churns and frenzies that dark and timeless air like sand in a whirlwind. And I, my head in a swirl of error, cried, "Master, what is this I hear? What people are these, whom pain has overcome?" He, "This is the sorrowful state of souls unsure, whose lives earn neither honor nor bad fame. They are mingled with angels of that base sort, who neither rebellious to God nor faithful to him chose neither side, but kept themselves apart. Now heaven expels them, not to mar its splendor, and hell rejects them, lest the wicked of heart take glory over them." And then I, "Master, what agony is it that makes them keen their grief with so much force?" He, "I will make brief answer. They have no hope of death, but a blind life so abject they envy any other fate. To all memory of them the world is deaf. Mercy and justice disdain them. Let us not speak of them. Look and pass on." I looked again. A whirling banner sped at such a rate it seemed it might never stop. Behind it, a train of souls so long that I would not have thought death had undone so many. When more than one I recognized had passed, I beheld the shade of him who made the great refusal, impelled by cowardice. So at once I understood beyond all doubt that this was the dreary guild repellent both to God and his enemies, hapless ones, never alive, their bare skin galled by wasps and flies, blood trickling down the face, mingling with tears for harvest underfoot by writhing maggots. Then, when I turned my eyes farther along our course, I could make out people upon the shore of some great river. "Master," I said, "it seems by this dim light that all of these are eager to cross over. Can you tell me by what law and who they are?" He answered, "Those are things you will discover when we have paused at Acheron's dismal shore." I walked on with my head down after that, fearful I had displeased him, and spoke no more. Then, at the river, an old man in a boat, white-haired, as he drew closer, shouting at us, "Woe to you, wicked souls! Give up the thought of heaven. I come to ferry you across into eternal dark, on the opposite side, into fire and ice. And you there, leave this place, you living soul. Stand clear of these who are dead." And then, when he saw I did not obey, "By other ports, in a lighter boat," he said, "you will be brought to shore by another way." My master spoke then, "Charon, do not rage. Thus it is willed, where everything may be simply if it is willed. Therefore oblige and ask no more." That silenced the grizzled jaws of the grey ferryman of the livid marsh, who had red wheels of flame about his eyes. But at his words, the forlorn and naked souls were changing color, cursing the human race, God and their parents, teeth chattering in their skulls. They called curses on the seed, the place, the hour of their own begetting and their birth. With wails and tears they gathered on the evil shore that waits for all who don't fear God. There demon Charon beckons them with his eyes of fire, crowded in a herd. They obey if he should summon, and he strikes at any laggards with his oar. As leaves in quick succession sail down in autumn until the bough beholds its entire store fallen to the earth, so Adam's evil seed swoop from the bank when each is called, as sure as a trained falcon, to cross to the other side of the dark water. And before one throng can land on the far shore, on this side new souls crowd. "My son," said the gentle master, "here are joined the souls of all who die in the wrath of God. From every country, all of them eager to find their way across the water, for the goad of divine justice spurs them so, their fear is transmuted to desire. Souls who are good never pass this way. Therefore, if you hear Charon complaining at your presence, consider what that means." Then the earth of that grim shore began to shake so violently I shudder and sweat, recalling it now. A wind burst up from the tear-soaked ground to erupt red light and batter my senses. And so I fell as though seized by sleep. Breaking the deep sleep that filled my head, a heavy clap of thunder startled me up as though by force. With rested eyes I stood, peering to find where I was. In truth, the lip above the chasm of pain which holds the din of infinite grief, a gulf so dark and deep and murky that though I gazed intently down into the canyon, I could see nothing below. Now we descend into the sightless zone, the poet began, dead pale now. I will go ahead, you second. I answered, seeing his pallor. How can I venture here if even you, who have encouraged me every time I falter, turn white with fear? And he, it is the pain people here suffer that paints my face this color of pity which you mistake for fear. Now, on. Our long road urges us forward. And he entered the abyss's first engirdling circle, and down he had me enter it too. Here we encountered no laments that we could hear, except for sighs that trembled the timeless air. They emanated from the shadowy sadnesses, not agonies, of multitudes of children and women and men. He said, And don't you ask what spirits are these? Before you go on, I tell you, they did not sin. If they have merit, it can't suffice without baptism, portal to the faith you maintain. Some lived before the Christian faith, so that they did not worship God aright, and I am one of those. Through this, no other fault, we are lost, afflicted only this one way, that having no hope, we live in longing. I heard these words with heartfelt grief that seized on me, knowing how many worthy souls endured suspension in that limbo. Dear sir, my master, I began, wanting to be reassured in the faith that conquers every error. Did ever anyone go forth from here, by his own good or perhaps another's, to join the blessed after? He understood my covert meaning, and said, I was new to this condition when I beheld a mighty one who descended here, arrayed with a crown of victory, and he recalled back from this place the shade of our first parent and his son Abel, and other shades who dwelled in limbo. Noah and Moses, the obedient giver of laws, went with him, and Abraham, the patriarch, King David and Israel went, and Israel's sire and children, and Rachel, for whom he labored so long, and many others. And his coming here made them blessed and rescued them. Know this, no human soul was saved till these. We did not stop our traveling while he spoke, but kept on passing through the woods, not trees, but a wood of thronging spirits. Nor did we make much distance from the place where I had slept, when I saw a fire that overcame a bleak hemisphere of darkness. Well before we stopped to address them, I could see people there and sense they were honorable folk. O master, apt in science and art, who honor both, what wins these shades distinction? Who are they who command a place so separate from the other ones? And he, their honored names, which still resound in your life above, have earned them heaven's grace, advancing them here. Meanwhile, a voice intoned, Hail the great poet whose shade had left this place and now returns. After the voice fell still, I saw 4 great shades making their way to us, their aspect neither sad nor joyful. Note well, Master began, the one who carries a sword and strides before the others as fits his role among these giants, he is Homer, their lord, the sovereign poet. The satirist follows him, Horace, with Lucan last and Ovid third. That lone voice just now hailed me by a name each of them shares with me. In such accord they honor me well. And so I saw, all come together there, the splendid school of the Lord of highest song, who like an eagle soars high above the others. After they had shared a word among themselves, they turned and greeted me with cordial gestures, at which my master smiled, and far more honor that fair company than made me one among them. So as we travelled onward toward the light, I made a sixth amid such store of wisdom. Thus we strolled, speaking of matters I will not give breath, silence as fitting now as speech was there. At length a noble castle blocked our path, encircled 7 times by a barrier of lofty walls, and defended round about by a handsome stream we strode across. It bore our weight like solid ground, and after that I passed through 7 gateways with the sages. We came to a fresh green meadow, where we met a group of people. With grave, deliberate gazes and manners of great authority, they spoke sparingly and in gentle, courtly voices. We drew aside to a place where we could look from a spacious, well-lit height and view them all. On that enamelled green I saw, and take glory within me for having seen them still, the spirits of the great. I saw Electra with many companions, among whom I knew well which shades were those of Aeneas and of Hector, and Caesar, who wore his armour falcon-eyed. I saw Camilla and Penthesilea beside her. I saw King Latinus on the other side, and sitting by him his daughter Lavinia. I saw that Brutus from whom Tarquin fled. I saw Lucretia, Julia, Marcia, Cornelia, and sitting at a distance separately, I saw lone Saladin of Arabia. I raised my eyes a little, and there was he who is acknowledged master of those who know, sitting in a philosophic family who looked to him and do him honor. I saw, nearest him in front, Plato and Socrates. I saw Democritus, who strove to show that the world is chance, Zeno, Empedocles, Anaxagoras, Thales, Heraclitus, Diogenes, the collector of qualities of things, Dioscorides, and Orpheus, Cicero, Linus, Seneca the moralist, Euclid the geometer, Ptolemy, Hippocrates, Galen, Avicenna, Averroes, who discussed the philosopher in his great commentary. I saw so many I cannot tally the list. For my demanding theme so pulls my story, to multiply the telling would be too little for the multitude of fact that filled my journey. The company of 6 divide and dwindle to 2. My wise guide leads me from that quiet another way. Again I see air tremble, and come to a part that has no light inside it. So I descended from first to second circle, which girdles a smaller space and greater pain, which spurs more lamentation. Minus the dreadful snarls at the gate, he examines each one's sin, judging and disposing as he curls his tail. That is, when an ill-begotten soul comes down, it comes before him and confesses all. Minos, great connoisseur of sin, discerns for every spirit its proper place in hell, and wraps himself in his tale with as many turns as levels down that shade will have to dwell. The crowd is always waiting. Here each one learns his judgment, and is assigned a place in hell. They tell, they hear, and down they are all cast. You who have come to sorrow's hospice, think well, said Minos, who at the sight of me had paused to interrupt his solemn task mid-deed. Beware how you come in and whom to trust. Don't be deceived because the gate is wide. My leader answered, Must you too scold this way? His destined path is not for you to impede. Thus it is willed, where everything may be because it has been willed, so ask no more. And now I can hear the notes of agony in sad crescendo beginning to reach my ear. Now I am where the noise of lamentation comes at me in blasts of sorrow. I am where all light is mute, with a bellowing like the ocean, turbulent in a storm of warring winds, the hurricane of hell in perpetual motion, sweeping the ravaged spirits as it rends, twists, and torments them. Driven as if to land, they reach the ruin, groaning, tears, laments, and cursing of the power of heaven. I learned they suffer here who sinned in carnal things, their reason mastered by desire, suborned. As winter starlings, riding on their wings, form crowded flocks, so spirits dip and veer, foundering in the wind's rough buffetings, upward or downward, driven here and there with never ease from pain nor hope of rest. As chanting cranes will form a line in air, so I saw souls come uttering cries, wind-tossed and lofted by the storm. "Master," I cried, "who are these people by black air oppressed?" "First among these, you wish to know," he said, "was Empress of many tongues. She so embraced lechery that she decreed it justified legally to evade the scandal of her lust. She is that Semiramis of whom we read, successor and wife of Ninus. She possessed the lands the Sultan rules. Next, she who died by her own hand for love and broke her vow to Sichaeus' ashes. After her comes lewd and wanton Cleopatra. See Helen, too, who caused a cycle of many evil years. And great Achilles, the hero whom love slew in his last battle. Paris and Tristram are here." He pointed out by name 1,000 souls whom love had parted from our life or more. When I had heard my teacher tell the roles of knights and ladies of antiquity, pity overwhelmed me. Half lost in its coils, "Poet," I told him, "I would willingly speak with those two who move along together and seem so light upon the wind." And he, "When they drift closer, then entreat them hither in the name of love that leads them. They will respond." Soon their course shifted, and the merciless weather battered them towards us. I called against the wind, "O wearied souls, if another does not forbid, come speak with us." As doves, whom desire has summoned, with raised wings steady against the current, glide, guided by will, to the sweetness of their nest, so, leaving the flock where Dido was, the two sped through the malignant air, till they had crossed to where we stood. So strong was the compulsion of my loving call. They spoke across the blast. "O living soul, who with courtesy and compassion voyage through black air, visiting us who stain the world with blood, if heaven's king bore affection for such as we are, suffering in this wind, then we would pray to him to grant you peace for pitying us in this our evil end. Now we will speak and hear as you may please to speak and hear, while the wind for our discourse is still. My birthplace is a city that lies where the Po finds peace with all its followers. Love, which in gentle hearts is quickly born, seized him for my fair body, which in a fierce manner that still torments my soul was torn untimely away from me. Love, which absolves none who are loved from loving, made my heart burn with joy so strong that as you see it cleaves still to him here. Love gave us both one death. Cana awaits the one who took our lives." These words were borne across from them to us. When I had heard those afflicted souls, I lowered my head and held it so till I heard the voice of the poet ask, "What are you thinking?" I answered, "Alas, that such sweet conceptions and passions so deep should bring them here." Then, looking up toward the lovers, "Francesca, your suffering makes me weep for sorrow and pity, but tell me, in the hours of sweetest sighing, how and in what shape or manner did love first show you those desires so hemmed by doubt?" And she to me, "No sadness is greater than in misery to rehearse memories of joy, as your teacher well could witness. But if you have so great a craving to measure our love's first root, I'll tell it with the fitness of one who weeps and tells. One day for pleasure we read of Lancelot, by love constrained, alone, suspecting nothing at our leisure. Sometimes at what we read our glances joined, looking from the book each to the other's eyes, then the colour in our faces drained. But one particular moment alone it was defeated us. The longed-for smile, it said, was kissed by that most noble lover. At this one who now will never leave my side kissed my mouth, trembling. A Galeotto, that book, and so was he who wrote it. That day we read no further." All the while the one shade spoke, the other at her side was weeping. My pity overwhelmed me, and I felt myself go slack, swooning, as in death. I fell like a dying body. Upon my mind's return from swooning shut, at hearing the piteous tale of those two kin, which confounded me with sadness at their plight. I see new torments, and tormented ones again, wherever I step or look. I am in the third circle, a realm of cold and heavy rain, a dark, accursed torrent eternally poured with changeless measure and nature. Enormous hail and tainted water mixed with snow are showered steadily through the shadowy air of hell. The soil they drench gives off a putrid odor. Three-headed Cerberus, monstrous and cruel, barks, dog-like at the souls immersed here, louder for his triple throat. His eyes are red, his beard grease-black. He has the belly of a meat feeder and talons on his hands. He claws the horde of spirits, he flays and quarters them in the rain. The wretches, howling like dogs where they are mired and pelted, squirm about again and again, turning to make each side a shield for the other. Seeing us, Cerberus made his 3 mouths yawn to show the fangs, his reptile body a quiver in all its members. My leader, reaching out to fill both fists with as much as he could gather, threw gobbets of earth down each voracious throat. Just as a barking dog grows suddenly still the moment he begins to gnaw his meat, struggling and straining to devour it all, so the foul faces of Cerberus became, who thundered so loudly at the souls in hell they wished that they were deaf. We too had come over the shades subdued by the heavy rain, treading upon their emptinesses, which seemed like real bodies. All lay on the ground but one, who sat up, seeing us pass. You who are led through this hell, recognize me if you can. You who were made before I was unmade. And I to him, the anguish you endure perhaps effaces whatever memory I had, making it seem I had not seen you before. But tell me who you are, assigned so sad a station as punishment. If any is more agony, none is so repellent. He said, your city, so full of envy that the sack spills over, held me once when I enjoyed the bright life up above. The name I took among you citizens was Chiaco. The sin of gluttony brought me here. You see me soaked to ruin in battering rain, but not alone, for all of these around me share the same penalty for the same transgression as mine. He fell silent, but I answered him, Chaco, I feel your misery. Its weight bids me to weep. But what of things to come? Tell, if you can, the divided city's fate, and of the citizens. Is anyone just? And tell me why such schism threatens it. He answered, after long argument they must descend to bloodshed, and the rustic block with much offence will expel the other first. Then, through the power of one who, while we speak, is temporizing, that party too will fall within 3 years, the ousted coming back with head held high. And long will they prevail, despite the others' cries of shame and despair under their burdens. Only 2 men of all are truly just, whose words the rest ignore, for the triple sparks of envy, greed, and pride ignite their hearts. I'd have you tell me more, I pleaded, once his grievous words were said. Farinata, Mosca, Tegiaio, men of good reason, Jacopo, Rusticucci, Arrigo, the good was their heart's purpose in life. So tell what portion their souls inherit now. I long to know if they feel heaven's sweetness or infernal poison. He said, their souls are among the blackest in hell, with different faults that weigh them to the pit. If you descend that far, you may see them all. But pray you, when you return to earth's sweet light, recall my memory there to the human world. Now I respond, and speak no more. With that his eyes went crooked and squinted, his head rolled. He regarded me a moment, then bent his head and fell back down with the others, blind and quelled. He will not wake again, my master said, until the angel's conclusive trumpet sounds and the hostile power comes, and the waiting dead wake to go searching for their unhappy tombs, and resume again the form and flesh they had, and hear that which eternally resounds. So, with slow steps, we traversed that place of mud, through rain and shades commingled, once or twice speaking of the future life. And so I said, Master, these torments, tell me, will they increase after the judgment, or lessen, or merely endure, burning as much as now? He said, in this, go back to your science, which teaches that the more a creature is perfect, the more it perceives the good, and likewise pain. The accursed people here can never come to true perfection. Instead, they can expect to come closer then than now. Traveling the course of the encircling road, and speaking more than I repeat, we too continued our way until the circuit came to where the path descends, and there we saw Plutus, the great enemy, and confronted him.
Pape Satan alepe,
Plutus began in a guttural, clucking voice. The courteous sage who knew all reassured me. Don't let fear harm you. Whatever power he has cannot prevent us climbing down this rock. Then, turning back towards that swollen face, he answered, Silence, cursed wolf! Attack your own insides with your devouring rage. Bound for the pit, this is no causeless trek. It is willed above, where Michael wreaked revenge on Pride's rebellion. Just as sails swollen with wind, as soon as the mast is snapped, collapse and plunge, that savage beast fell shrinking to the ground. So we descended to the fourth defile, to experience more of that despondent land that sacks up all the universe's ill. Justice of God! Who is it that heaps together so much peculiar torture and travail? How is it that we choose to sin and wither? Like waves above Charybdis, each crashing apart against the one it rushes to meet, here gather people who hurry forward till they must meet and dance their round. Here I saw more souls than elsewhere, spreading far to the left and right. Each pushes a weight against his chest and howls at his opponent each time that they clash. Why do you squander? And why do you hoard? Each wheels to roll his weight back round again. They rush towards the circle's opposite point, collide painfully once more, and curse each other afresh. And after that refrain, each one must head through his half-circle again to his next joust. My own heart pained by those collisions, I said, Who are these, master? And are the shades who contest here on our left all clergy with tonsured head? He answered, Every one of the shades here massed in the first life had a mind so squinty-eyed that in his spending he heeded no proportion. A fact they bark out plainly when they collide at the circle's facing points that mark division between opposite faults. Those bare of head were clerics, cardinals, popes, in whom the passion of avarice had wrought excess. I said, Among these, master, I'm sure I'll recognize some who were thus polluted. He replied, The thought you hold is vain. Just as the ways that made these souls so foul were undiscerning, so they are dim to discernment in this place. Here they will keep eternally returning to the two butting places. From the grave these will arise fists closed, and those pates shining. Wrongness in how to give and how to have took the fair world from them, and brought them this, their ugly brawl, which words need not retrieve. Now you can see, my son, how ludicrous and brief are all the goods in fortune's ken which humankind contend for. You see from this how all the gold there is beneath the moon, or that there ever was, could not relieve one of these weary souls. Aye, master, say then, what is this fortune you mention, that it should have the world's goods in its grip? Foolish creatures, how great an ignorance plagues you! May you receive my teaching. He who made all of heaven's features in his transcendent wisdom gave them guides, so each part shines on all the others, all nature's illumination apportioned. So, too, for goods of worldly splendor he assigned a guide and minister. She, when time seems proper, spreads those vanities from race to race, this blood, then that, beyond prevention of human wit. Thus one clan languishes for another's good, according to how her judgment may dictate, which is invisible, like a snake in grass. Your wisdom cannot resist her. In her might, fortune, like any other god, foresees, judges, and rules her appointed realm. No truces can stop her turning. Necessity decrees that she be swift, and so men change their places in rapid permutation. She is cursed too often by those who ought to sing her praises, wrongfully blamed and defamed. But she is blessed, and does not hear it. Happy among the choir of other primal creatures, she too is placed in bliss, rejoicing as she turns her sphere. Now, we descend to greater wretchedness. Already every star that was rising higher when I set out is sinking, and long delays have been forbidden us. We travelled across to the circle's farther edge, above the place where a foaming spring spills over into a foss. The water was purple-black. We followed its current down a strange passage. This dismal watercourse descends the greyish slopes until its torrent discharges into the marsh, whose name is Styx. Gazing intently, I saw there were people warrened within that bog, all naked and muddy, with looks of fury striking each other, with a hand, but also with their heads, chests, feet, and backs, teeth tearing piecemeal. My kindly master explained. These are the souls whom anger overcame, my son. Know also that under the water are found others, whose sighing makes these bubbles come that pock the surface everywhere you look. Lodged in the slime, they say, once we were grim and sullen in the sweet air above, that took a further gladness from the play of sun. Inside us we bore Acedio's dismal smoke. We have this black mire now to be sullen in. This canticle they gargle from the craw, unable to speak whole words. We travelled on through a great arc of swamp between that slough and the dry bank, all the while with eyes turned towards those who swallow the muck below. Then at length we came to a tower's base. Continuing, I tell how for some time before we reached the lofty tower's base, our eyes were following 2 points of flame visible at the top, and answering these, another returned the signal so far away the eye could barely catch it. I turned to face my sea of knowledge and said, "O master, say, what does this beacon mean, and the other fire? What answer does it signal? And who are they who set it there?" He said, "It should be clear. Over these fetid waves you can perceive what is expected, if this atmosphere of marsh fumes doesn't hide it. Bow never drove arrow through air so quickly as then came skimming across the water a little skiff, guided by a single boatman at the helm. 'Now, evil soul,' he cried out, 'you are caught.' 'Phlegyas, Phlegyas, you roar in vain this time,' my lord responded. 'You'll have us in your boat only as long as it takes to cross the fen.' Like one convinced he has been the butt of gross deception, and bursting to complain, Phlegyas held his wrath. We boarded the boat, my leader first. It bobbed without a sign of being laden till it carried my weight. As soon as we embarked, the ancient prow turned swiftly from shore. It made a deeper cut into the water than it was wont to do with others. In the dead channel one rose abeam, coated with mud, and addressed me. 'Who are you to come here before your time?' And I to him, 'Although I come, I do not come to remain.' Then added, 'Who are you who have become so brutally foul?' 'You see me, I am one who weeps,' he answered. And I to him, 'In weeping and sorrow remain, cursed soul, for I have seen through all that filth. I know you.' He started gripping with both hands at the boat. My master stood and thrust him back off, saying, 'Back to safekeeping among the other dogs.' And then my guide embraced my neck and kissed me on the face and said, 'Indignant soul, blessed indeed is she who bore you. Arrogant in his vice was that one when he lived. No goodness whatever adorning his memory, his shade is furious. In the world above, how many a self-deceiver, now counting himself a mighty king, will sprawl swine-like amid the mire when life is over, leaving behind a name that men revile.' I said, 'Master, truly I should like to see that spirit pickled in this swill before we've made our way across the lake.' And he to me, 'Before we see the shore you will be satisfied, for what you seek is fitting.' After a little I saw him endure fierce mangling by the people of the mud, a sight I give God thanks and praises for. 'Come get Filippo Argenti,' they all cried, and crazed with rage the Florentine spirit bit at his own body. Let no more be said of him, but that we left him still beset. New cries of lamentation reached my ear, and I leaned forward to peer intently out. My kindly master said, 'A city draws near whose name is Dis, of solemn citizenry and mighty garrison. I, already clear are mosques. I see them there within the valley, baked red as though just taken from the fire. And he, it is fire blazing eternally inside of them that makes them so appear within this nether hell.' We had progressed into the deep-dug moats that circle near the walls of that bleak city, which seemed to cast of solid iron. We journeyed on to complete an immense circuit before we reached at last a place where the boatman shouted, "Now get out, here is the entrance." Above the gates I saw more than 1,000 of those whom heaven had spat like rain, all raging, "Who is this? Who'd go without death through the kingdom of the dead?" And my wise master made a sign to show that he desired to speak with them aside. And then they tempered their great disdain a bit, answering, "You by yourself may come inside, but let that other depart who dares set foot within this kingdom. Let him retrace alone his foolish way, try if he can. And let you remain here who have guided such a one over terrain so dark." You judge, O listener, if I did not lose heart or believe then, hearing that cursed voice, that I would never return from there. "Oh, my dear guide," I said, "who has restored my confidence 7 times over and drawn me out of peril, stay at my side. Do not desert me now like this, undone. If we can go no further, let us instead retrace our steps together. That nobleman who led me there then told me, 'Do not fear. None can deprive us of the passage one has willed for us to have. Wait for me here and feed your spirit hope and comfort. Remember, I won't abandon you in this nether sphere.' So he goes away and leaves me, the gentle father, while I remain in doubt with yes and no vying in my head. What they discussed together or what my guide proposed, I do not know, for they were out of hearing. Before much time the demons scrambled back where we would go, and then I saw our adversaries slam the portals of the entrance in the face of my master, who remained outside and came back to me walking slowly with downcast eyes. His brow devoid of confidence, he said, 'Who has denied me this abode of sighs?' And then he said to me, 'Don't be dismayed by my vexation. I will conquer this crew, however they contrive to block our road. This insolence of theirs is nothing new. At a less secret gate they've shown it before, one still unbolted and open, as you know. You read the deadly inscription that it bore. Already on this side of it, down the steep pass, passing the circles without an escort, be sure someone is coming to open the city to us.'" The outward colour cowardice painted me when I beheld my leader turning back, repressed his own new pallor more hurriedly. He paused with an attentive air, but like one listening, not watching, for the eye saw little in air so dark and fog so thick. "We have to win this battle," he started to say, "or else, and she who offered so much aid, late though it seems to be, and still on the way." I could see plainly how he strove to hide his sentences beginning with its close in different words from those he would have said, scaring me none the less, each broken phrase leading me to a meaning perhaps much worse than any it held. "Does anyone whose place is the first circle, where the only curse is having no hope, ever come down so far as this grim hollow?" I asked him. "Such a course," he said, "is rare among us, though once before I have been down here, beckoned as a shade by wicked Erichtho, the conjurer, who used to summon spirits of the dead back to their bodies. My own flesh was but still a little while denuded of my shade. This time she made me enter within this wall to draw a spirit from the circle of Judas, which is the lowest and darkest place of all, and farthest from the heaven whose dome encloses everything in creation. I know the way, be sure of that. This quagmire which produces so strong a stench surrounds the city of woe. We cannot enter now except with wrath." And he said more that I don't remember now. My eyes were on the tower we stood beneath, for at its glowing top 3 hellish furies suddenly appeared, like women, but with a wreath of bright green hydras girdled about their bodies, blood-stained with squirming vipers, in a crown fringing their savage temples. The fierce Erinyes, he said, who knew these handmaidens of the Queen of Eternal Sorrows, Bagheera on the left, Alecto Howls on the right, and in between Tisiphone. Each one was clawing at her breast, and each was beating herself, and screamed so loud I pressed against him, flinching at the blast. "Oh, let Medusa come," the Furies bade as they looked down, "to make him stone. We grieve not avenging the assault of Theseus," he said. "Turn your back, close your eyes. Should Gorgon arrive and show herself, then if you looked at her, there would be no returning back above." He turned me round himself, and to make sure, not trusting mine alone, he covered my face with his hands too. Oh, you, whose mind is clear, understand well the lesson that underlies the veil of these strange verses I have written. Across the turbid waves now came the noise of a fearsome crash, by which both shores were shaken, a sound like that of a wind that gathers force from waves of heat in violent collision, and batters the forest, and on its unchecked course shatters the branches, and tears them to the ground, and sweeps them off in dust clouds, with scornful roars, and the wild beasts and shepherds flee at the sound. Taking his hands from my eyes, he said, "Now look, there where the very harshest fumes abound across the ancient scum. As frogs are quick to vanish through water and hunch on bottom sand as soon as they see their enemy, the snake, so I saw more than 1,000 souls of the ruined flee before one who strode across the Styx dry shod as though on land. With his left hand he cleared the polluted air before his face, and only in that annoyance did he seem tired. I knew assuredly he was sent to us from heaven, and I turned my head to regard the master, who signaled that I should be mute and bow before him. Ah, to me he appeared so full of high disdain. He went to the gate and opened it by means of a little wand, and there was no resistance. O race cast out from heaven, exiles despised there, he intoned from that grim threshold, why this insolence? Why do you kick against that will whose end cannot be thwarted, and whose punishments many time over have increased your pain? What use to butt at what the fates dispense? Remember your Cerberus's throat and chin, for just this reason still are stripped of fur." Then he turned back on the filthy path again, not speaking a word to us, but with the air of one whom other matters must concern than those who stand before him. And so, secure after those holy words, we in our turn stepped forward towards the city, and through the gate, entering without dispute. Anxious to learn what their condition was who populate a fortress so guarded, I cast my eye round as soon as I was in, and saw a great plain filled with woe and torment. As on the land at Arles, where the river Rhone grows more subdued, or at Pola, where the Quarnero sets a bound for Italy, bathing her borders, on every side the ground is made uneven by the tombs, so was it here. But these were of a mode more bitter, for among the graves were flames that made the sepulchres glow with fiercer heat than a smith could need. Among these catacombs the lids were raised, with sounds of woe so great, those within surely suffered horrible pain. "Master," I said, "who are these people that are shut and sepulchred within these coffers of stone, making their sounds of anguish from inside?" He answered, "Here arch-heretics lie, and groan, along with all the converts that they made, the followers of every sect, with like entombed with like. A greater multitude crowds into these graves than you may think they take. Some sepulchres grow hotter, and some less." He turned to the right, and we continued to walk between the anguish and the high parapets. And now, along the narrow pathway that ran between those tortures and the city wall, I followed my master. "O matchless power," I began, "who lead me through evil circles at your will, speak to me with the answers that I crave about these souls and the sepulchres they fill. Might they be seen? The cover of each grave is lifted open, and no one is on guard." "When they return from Jehoshaphat above," he answered, "bearing the bodies that they had, all shall be closed. Here Epicurus lies with all his followers, who call the soul dead when the flesh dies. The question that you raise will soon be answered, now that we are inside, and so will the secret wish you don't express." I said, "Dear guide, believe me, I do not hide my heart from you, except through my intention to speak but little. The way that you have said earlier I ought to be disposed." "O Tuscan, who travel alive through this, the city of fire, while speaking in so courteous a fashion, if it should please you, stop a moment here. Your way of speaking shows that you were born in the same noble fatherland, there where I possibly have wrought excessive harm." This sound erupted from a coffer of stone. I drew back towards my guide in my alarm. "What are you doing?" he said. "Go back again, and see where Farinata has sat up straight. From the waist up you may behold the man." Already my eyes were on his. He sat upright, and seemed, by how he bore his chest and brow, to have great scorn for hell. My leader set firm hands upon me at once, and made me go forward between the rows of sepulchres, saying, "Choose fitting words," as we wended through. At his tomb's foot I felt his proud gaze pierce mine for a moment, and then, As if in disdain, he spoke and answered me, "Who were your ancestors?" Eager to comply with that, I made all plain, conceding nothing, whereupon he raised his brows a little. Then he said, "These men were enemies to me. They fiercely opposed me and my forebears and my party, so twice I scattered them." "If ousted and abused," I answered, "they return to claim their place from every quarter. Yours have not learned that art of return so well." Then suddenly the face of a shade appeared beside him, showing the part from the chin up, I think through having risen erect on his knees. His gaze began to dart anxiously round me, as though in expectation of someone with me. But when that hope was gone, he wept. "If you can journey through this blind prison, by virtue of high genius, where is my son? And why is he not with you?" My rejoinder, "My own strength has not brought me, but that of one who guides me through here and is waiting yonder, toward one your Guido perhaps had scorned." I well deduced his name from his words and from the manner of punishment, and thus could answer in full. Suddenly, straightening up, the shade cried out, "What? Did I hear you say he had hotel? Is he not alive? Does the sweet light not strike his eyes?" Perceiving my delay in giving any answer, he fell back flat, face upwards, appearing no more. But not so he, the great soul at whose beckoning I had paused. He did not change his features in any way, nor bend his neck or waist. "The point you raised," he resumed, where interrupted, "my kin not good at learning that art. I feel more agonized by that accursed fact than by this bed. But when the lady's face, who rules this place, has kindled fewer than 50 times," he said, "then you will know how heavy that art weighs. Now tell me, may you regain the sweet world's vantage, why is that people so fierce in its decrees towards my kin?" I answered, "It was the carnage and devastation that dyed the Arbia red, which made the prayers in our temple savage." Shaking his head, "I was not alone," he sighed, "and surely I would not have chosen to join the others without some cause. But where all agreed to level Florence, there I was alone, one who defended her before them all." "Ah, pray you, so may your seed find peace again. Unravel a knot that makes my reason fail," I said. "If I hear rightly, you seem to foresee what time will bring, and yet you seem to deal differently with the present." He answered me, "Like someone with faulty vision. We can behold remote things well, for so much light does he who rules supreme still grant us. But we are foiled when things draw near us, and our intelligence is useless when they are present. So of your world in its present state we have no evidence or knowledge, except if others bring us word. Thus you can understand that with no sense left to us, all our knowledge will be dead from that moment when the future's door is shut." Then, moved by compunction for my fault, I said, "Will you now tell the one who fell back flat his son is truly still among the living? Tell him what caused my silence, that my thought had wandered into that error which your resolving just wiped away?" And now I heard my guide calling me back, so hurriedly contriving to learn, I begged the shade to say, if he could, who lay with him, and I heard him answer, "I lie with over 1,000 of the dead. The second Frederick is among the number, and the cardinal. Of others I will not speak." With that he hid himself. I walked back over to the ancient poet, with my thoughts at work, mulling the words that bore such menace to me. My guide set out, and as we walked, he spoke. "Why is it you're disturbed?" I told him why. "Preserve in memory what you have heard against yourself," the sage advised, "and I pray you listen." He raised a finger at the word. "When you confront her radiance, whose eyes can see everything in their fair clarity, be assured, then you shall learn what your life's journey will be." He turned to the left, and leaving the city wall behind our backs, we continued on our way towards the center, which was now our goal, following a path that strikes the valley floor. And from that valley rose an odor so foul, the stench repelled us even high up there. Up on the topmost rim of a deep-cut bank formed by a circle of massive fissured rock, we stood above a pen more cruel. The stink thrown up from the abyss had grown so thick, its excess drove us to shelter in the space behind a great tomb's lid. It bore a plaque inscribed, I hold Pope Anastasius, drawn by Photinus from the proper path. We must put off descending farther than this, my master said, until this rotten breath has become familiar to our sense of smell. Discover some matter to fill the lost time with, I pray you, I answered, so we may use it well. I am so minded, he said, and then, my son, within these rocks 3 lesser circles fall, each one below another, like those you have seen, and all of them are packed with accursed souls. In order that hereafter the sight alone may be sufficient, you will hear what rules determine how and why they are constrained. The end of every wickedness that fuels heaven's hatred is injustice, and each end of this kind, whether by force or fraud, afflicts some other person. But since fraud is found in humankind as its peculiar vice, it angers God more, so the fraudulent are lower and suffer more unhappiness. The whole first circle is for the violent. But because violence involves a deed against 3 persons, its apportionment and fabrication are in 3 rings, to God, to oneself, or one's neighbor. All violence is done, to them, or to their things instead, as I'll explain. By violence, death and wounds of grievous kinds are inflicted on one's neighbor, and on his property, arson, ruinous offense, extortion. So the first ring is the harbor of torment for the homicides and those who strike out wrongfully, despoiler, robber, and plunderer in various companies. One may lay violent hands on his own being, or what belongs to himself, and all of these repent in vain within the second ring. He who deprives himself of your world sins thus, or gambles, or dissipates whatever thing he has of worth, or weeps when he should rejoice. Violence against the deity, too, exists. To deny and blaspheme him in the heart does this, as does despising nature and her gifts. Therefore the smallest ring imprints its mark on Sodom and Cahor, and him who speaks contemptuously of God with all his heart. Fraud, which bites every conscience, a man may play either on one who trusts him or one who does not. The latter of the two is seen to destroy only those bonds of love that nature makes. So in the second circle, hypocrisy, flatterers, sorcery, larceny, simoniacs with pimps, barrators, and such filth have their nest. But the other kind of fraud not only forsakes the love that nature makes, but the special trust that further added love creates. Therefore, at the universe's core, inside the least circle, the seat of Dis, every betrayer eternally is consumed. Master, you state all of this lucidly, and you make clear just what it is that distinguishes this pit and those it holds. But what of those condemned to languish in the thick marsh, that other set, beaten by rain, those driven by the wind, and those who collide and clash with angry tongues? How is it that all these are not confined in the Red City to suffer, if their wrongs have brought God's anger on them? And if not, then why are they in such a plight? What brings your thoughts to wander so from the proper route? Where has your mind been gazing? Don't you recall a passage in your Ethics? The words that treat 3 dispositions counter to heaven's will: incontinence, malice, insane brutality, and how incontinence is less distasteful to God and earns less blame. Think carefully about this doctrine. Consider who they are whose punishment is above, outside. You'll see clearly why they are apart from the wicked here, and why his vengeance smites them with less wrath. O sun that makes all troubled vision clear, you give solutions I am so contented with, that asking no less than knowing pleases me. But please, I said, could we retrace our path back to the place where you said usury offends celestial goodness, and solve that not? He said, for the comprehending, philosophy serves in more places than one to demonstrate how nature takes her own course from the design of the divine intelligence and its art. Study your physics well, and you'll be shown in not too many pages that your art's good is to follow nature insofar as it can, as a pupil emulates his master. God has, as it were, a grandchild in your art. By these two, man should thrive and gain his bread, if you remember Genesis, from the start. But since the usurer takes a different way, he condemns nature both in her own sort and in her follower as well, while he chooses to invest his hope another place. But now, come follow me. It pleases me to go now, for above us in the skies the fish are quivering at the horizon's edge, and the whole wagon lies over chorus. And this, farther ahead, is where we descend the ridge. The Alp-like place we came for our descent down the steep bank was one no eye would seek because of what was there. This side of Trent there is a place a landslide fell and struck the Adigé's flank. Because of unstable ground or earthquake, rocks once tumbled from the peak and formed a passage where people can descend. Such was the footing we had down that ravine. And at the broken chasm's edge we found the infamy of Crete, conceived within the false cow's shell. When he saw us come his way, he bit himself in rage like one insane. My master called, "Perhaps you think you see the Duke of Athens, the one who dealt you death up in the world. Beast, take yourself away. This is no man your sister taught. In truth, he has come here to witness your punishment." As a bull breaks loose in the death blows aftermath and plunges back and forth, but though unspent cannot go forward, so did the Minotaur act. My wary guide cried, "Run to the descent, go quickly while he's raging." So we picked our way down over a rubble scattered stone that shifted under me often as I walked with a new weight. While I was climbing down, I thought to myself, and soon my master said, "You may be thinking about this ruined terrain, guarded by the feral rage that I defied and quelled just now. Know then, that other time I journeyed here, this rock had not yet slid. It must have been a little before he came to Dis, if I have reckoned rightly, to take the great spoil of the upper circle with him, when the deep, fetid valley began to shake everywhere, so that I thought the universe felt love, the force that has brought chaos back many times over, say some philosophers. And at that moment this ancient rock, both here and elsewhere, tumbled to where it now appears. But keep your eyes below us, for coming near is the river of blood, in which boils everyone whose violence hurt others. Oh, blind desire of covetousness, oh, anger gone insane, that goad us on through life which is so brief, to steep in eternal woe when life is done. I saw a broad moat bending in a curve, encircling the plain, just as my guide had said. Between the moat and the bottom of the cliff, centaurs, who were armed with bows and arrows, sped in file, as on a hunt they might be found when they were in the world. When we appeared, they halted, and three came forward from the band, with bows and shafts they chose held ready to aim. One hailed us from a distance. "You who descend the hillside, for what torment have you come? Tell us from there. If not, I draw my bow." "We will make answer to Chiron," my guide told him, "who is beside you. You always brought yourself woe because your will was hasty." He nudged me and said, "That one is Nisus, he who met death through fair Deianira, and by himself satisfied vengeance for himself. The middle one, whose gaze is directed at his breast with lowered head, is the great Chiron, tutor of Achilles. The other is Pholus, full of rage. They circle the moat by thousands. If any soul should rise out of the blood more than its guilt makes lawful, they pierce it with their arrows." As we came close, Chiron drew an arrow's notch back through the tangle of beard along his jaw to clear a space for his large mouth. And to the others he said, "Have you observed how that one's steps displace objects his body touches? Feet of the dead are not accustomed to behave like that." And my good leader, who by this time stood quite near the centaur's chest, just opposite the place where Chiron's two natures joined, replied, "He is indeed alive, and in that state alone. It falls to me to be his guide through the dark valley. It is necessity, and not his pleasure, that puts him on this road. From singing Alleluia, one came to me to give me this strange mission. He is no thief, nor I a spirit given to larceny. But by the power that lets me walk a path so savage, give us a member of your pack to come along as companion to us both, and show us where the ford is, and on his back to carry this one who, not a spirit, cannot fly through the air." Then Chiron turned and spoke, bending his torso towards Nisus on his right. "Go back and guide them then, and turn away the challenge of any other troops you meet." Now with a trusty escort, we made our way along the boiling crimson, those boiled inside shrieking beside us. On some it came so high it covered their eyebrows. The mighty centaur said, "These are the tyrants given to blood and plunder. Here they lament the merciless harm they did. Here's Alexander, and he who held Sicily under for many a sad year, fierce Dionysus. That black hair there is Azalino's, and yonder, that other fairer head, is Abizo of Estes. In the world above, the man his stepson slew." I turned towards the poet, whose answer was, Let him be first guide, I your second now. A little farther on, the centaur stopped at a crowd that seemed to rise from the boiling flow up to the throat. He showed us one who kept off to one side. Within the bosom of God he stabbed another's heart, and it has dripped blood ever since upon the Thames, he said. I saw some others whose head and even chest came up above the stream, and in that crowd were many I recognized. The blood decreased, sinking by more and more until it cooked only the feet, and that is where we crossed. To here you have seen the boiling stream contract, he said. From here its bed grows deeper again till it completes its circle, to reconnect with where God's justice makes the tyrants groan. It goads Attila, a scourge on earth, and Pyrrhus and Sextus. And there also are eternally drawn the tears unlocked by boiling, milked from the eyes of Rainier Pazzo and Rainier da Cornetto, men who brought such warfare to the public ways. Then he turned back and crossed the ford again. Nisus had not yet reached the other side when we moved forward into woods unmarked by any path, the leaves not green, earth-hued, the boughs not smooth, knotted and crooked-forked, no fruit but poisoned thorns. Of the wild beasts near Cecina and Cornetto that hate fields worked by men with plough and harrow, none infest thickets that are as rough or dense as this. Here the repellent harpies make their nests, who drove the Trojans from the Strophades with dire announcements of the coming woe. They have broad wings, a human neck and face, clawed feet, and swollen feathered bellies. They caw their lamentations in the eerie trees. Here the good master began. Before you go farther, be aware that now you are in this, the second ring, and so you shall be until the horrible sand. Look well, for here one sees things which in words would be incredible. On every side I heard wailing voices grieve, yet I could not see anyone there to wail, and so I stopped, bewildered. I believe my guide believed that in my belief the voices I heard from somewhere in among the grove came somehow from people who were in hiding places, and therefore the master said, if you remove a little branch from any one of these pieces of foliage around us, the thoughts you have will also be broken off. I reached my hand a little in front of me and twisted off one shoot of a mighty thorn bush, and it moaned. Why do you break me? And then, after it had grown darker with blood, it began again and mourned. Why have you torn me? Have you no pity then? Once we were men, now we are stumps of wood. Your hand should show some mercy, though we had been the souls of serpents. As flames spurt at one side of a green log, oozing sap at the other end, hissing with escaping air, so that branch flowed with words and blood together, at which my hand released the tip, and I stood like one in dread. Had he been able to credit or comprehend before, O wounded spirit, my sage replied, what he had witnessed only in my verses, his hand would never have performed this deed against you. But the fact belief refuses, compelled me, though it grieves me thus to prompt him. But tell him who you are, so that his praises may make amends by freshening your fame when he returns again to the world above, as he is permitted. And the broken stem, your words have so much sweetness they contrive to draw me out of silence. I am enticed to talk a little while. May it not prove burdensome to you. I am he who possessed both keys to Frederick's heart, and I turned either, unlocking and locking, with so soft a twist I kept his secrets from almost any other. For this, my glorious office, I stayed so true, I lost both sleep and life. The harlot that never takes its whore's eyes from Caesar's retinue, the common fatal vice of courts, inflamed all minds against me. And they inflamed so inflamed Augustus, that the honors I claimed in gladness were converted into pain. My mind, in its disdainful temper, assumed dying would be a way to escape disdain, making me treat my juster self unjustly. and by this tree's strange roots I swear again, I never betrayed my lord who was so worthy of honor. If you return to the world above, either of you, please comfort my memory still prostrate from the blow that envy gave. The poet waited a moment, then said to me, since he is silent, don't waste the time you have, but speak and ask him what you wish. And you question him and ask what you discern would satisfy me. I cannot because of pity that fills my heart. Therefore my guide began, for this man freely to do the thing you say, imprisoned spirit, tell him if you can, and if it pleases you, in just what way the soul is bound in knots like these. Give word also, if any soul could be set free from members such as these. It puffed air hard, and soon that exhalation became a voice. You shall be answered briefly then, it uttered. When the fierce soul has quit the fleshly case it tore itself from, Minos sends it down to the seventh depth. It falls to this wooded place, no chosen spot, but where fortune flings it in. And there it sprouts like a grain of spelt, to shoot up as a sapling, then a wild plant, and then the harpies, feeding on the foliage, create pain, and an outlet for the pain as well. We too shall come, like the rest, each one to get his cast-off body, but not for us to dwell within again, for justice must forbid having what one has robbed oneself of. Still, here we shall drag them, and through the mournful wood our bodies will be hung, with every one fixed on the thorn bush of its wounding shade. We both were still attentive when it was done, thinking it might have more to say, when an uproar surprised us, just as when a hunter, mindful of wild boar and the chase, suddenly hears the beasts and crashing bush. There on our left came two at a desperate pace, naked, torn, so hard-pressed they seemed to crash headlong through every tangle the wood contained. The one in front cried, "Come now, come in a rush, O death!" The other shouted, falling behind, "Your legs were not so nimble when you ran at the jousting of the topo, Lano, my friend." And then, perhaps because his breath began to fail him, he stopped and hunched against a bush, as if to make himself and its branches one. Behind them, eager as greyhounds off the leash, black bitches filled the wood, avid and quick. They set their teeth on the one who stopped to crouch, and tore his limbs apart, and then they took the wretched members away. Then my escort led me by one hand to the bush, which spoke, grieving in vain, through places where it was hurt and bled. "Jacopo da Santo Andrea," it cried, "what did you gain by shielding in me? What part had I in your sinful life?" My master said, when he was standing above it, "And who were you, who through so many wounds exhale this blood mixed with sad words?" It answered, "O soul, you too who arrived to see this shameful havoc crush my leaves and tear them from me, gather them now and bring them to the foot of this wretched bush. In life I was of the city that chose to leave Mars her first patron and take the Baptist, for which the art of Mars will always make her grieve. And if his semblance did not in part remain still at the Arno, she would not survive. And later, when they pitched the city again, over the ashes left by Attila, those striving to refound it would have worked in vain. And I made my own house be my gallows." Compelled by the love I bear my native place, I gathered the scattered sprays and gave them again to him who was already faint of voice. From there we proceeded to the boundary line, at which the third and second rings divide, and there a dreadful form of justice is seen. To make these new things clear, we two now stood on a plain whose bed rejects all plants, bare, flat, garlanded all round by the woeful wood, just as the wood is by the sorrowful moat. And here we stayed our steps at the very edge. The ground was dry, deep sand, resembling that which Cato trod. O vengeance of God, how much should you be feared by all of those who read what my eyes saw? It was a great assemblage of naked souls in herds, all of whom mourned most miserably and seemed to be subject to different laws. Some lay upon the ground, supine. Some sat hunched up, while others walked restlessly about. It seemed that those who moved were the more numerous, those who lay abject in torment fewest, but it was they who grieved with tongues most loosened by pain. All over the sand, distended flakes of fire drifted from aloft, slowly as mountain snow without a wind. As when Alexander, in India's hottest region, saw flames fall on his army intact to the ground, and had his soldiers tramp the accumulation to extinguish them before the fire could spread, eternal fire descended in such profusion, sand kindled like tinder under flint, and made the pain redouble. With their dancing hands not resting even for a moment, they poured themselves, now here, now there, and beat the brands of fresh fire off. "Oh, master," I began, "who vanquish all except the stubborn fiends that opposed us at the gate? Who is that one, the great one, seeming to pay no heed to the fire, who lies disdainful and scowling, so that the rain seems not to ripen him?" He appeared to hear me ask about him, and shouted, "What I was alive, I am in death, though Jove may wear his smith out, from whom anger made him seize the sharpened bolt that smote me my last day, and though he wears out every smith he has at Mongibello's black forge, and though he cry, 'Help, help, good Vulcan,' just the way he did amid the battle of Phlegra, and hurl at me with all his might, he still will not have had the pleasure of his vengeance." Then my guide spoke with more force than I had heard, and said, "O Capaneus, that this unquenched pride remains in you just punishes you the more. No torment but this raging of yours could goad with agony enough to match your ire." And then gentler to me, "He was one of 7 kings who besieged Thebes, and bore, still seems to bear, disdain for God. But, as I said, his revilings earn his breast fitting badges. Now, follow my steps. Tread not the scorching sand, but a path that clings close to the wood." In silence we reached a place where, gushing from the woods, a small stream poured, so red that it still makes me shudder. As issues that stream from Bulicame that is shared among the prostitutes, so this brook flowed down and across the sand. It was stone-floored. Stone lined both banks and the margins on each side, and I could see that this would be our route. "In all that I have shown you," my master said, "since we first entered through that open gate whose threshold no one ever is denied, nothing your eyes have seen is so worth note as this present stream, which quenches in its flood all of the flames above it." So, word for word, my master spoke, and I asked him for the food to fill the appetite these words inspired. He answered, "In the middle of the sea lies a waste land called Crete, a realm whose lord governed the world in its age of purity. The mountain Ida is there, which once was glad with foliage and waters, and now must lie deserted like some worn thing by time decayed. Long ago, Rhea chose it for her child as his safe cradle, and since they had to hide, made all there shout whenever her infant wailed. Within the mountain stands an immense old man, who turns his back towards Damietta, to hold his gaze on Rome as on his mirror. Of fine gold is his head, pure silver his arms and breast, down to the fork is brass, and from there down the choicest iron comprises all the rest, but the right foot of clay baked hard as brick. On it more weight than on the left is pressed. Every part but the gold head bears a crack, a fissure dripping tears that collect and force their passage down the cavern from rock to rock into this valley's depth, where, as a source, they form the Acheron, Styx, and Phlegethon. Then their way down is by this narrow course, until, where all descending has been done, they form Cocytus. And about that pool I shall say nothing, for you will see it soon." And I to him, "But if this stream does fall thus from our world, then why does it appear at only this border?" And he, "As you know well, the place is round. Although you have come far towards the pit by left turns always down, you haven't completed all the circle. Therefore, if anything new appears we haven't seen, it should not bring amazement to your face." And I said, "Where are Lethe and Phlegethon? For you are silent regarding one of these, and say the rain of tears creates the other." He, "All your questions please me, but in one case the boiling of this red water should give the answer. Lethe you shall see, but out of this abyss, there where, repented guilt removed, souls gather to cleanse themselves. Then, now it is time for us to leave the wood. The margins are not afire and make a pathway. Over them, come close behind me. Every flame is extinguished here." Now the firm margin bears us, under the vapour rising from the stream to form a shade and fend the fire off, sheltering both banks and water. As Flemings between Vigeant and Bruges, to defend against the tide that rushes in on them, construct a bulwark to drive the sea from land, and Paduans on the Brenta do, to stem the water and protect their castle and town before Carentana feels the heat. In the same manner those banks were made, except the one who built them did not make them as high or thick, whoever he was. And I could not have seen the wood that lay behind us had I looked back, when we encountered another troop of souls, who looked at us the way that men will look at one another at dusk, when daylight fails, under a new moon, knitting their brows at us the way old tailors do when threading needles. While I was being examined by them thus, one recognized me, and took me by the hem, crying, "Why, what a marvel!" I fixed my eyes on his scorched face as he reached out his arm, and the baked features I saw did not forestall my knowing him. I reached back down to him, my hand towards his face, and answered his call, "Are you here, Ser Brunetto?" He replied, "My son, may it not displease you, if a while Brunetto Latini turns back to walk instead with you a little, and lets the train go on?" "I beg it of you with all my heart," I said, "and should you prefer that you and I sit down, if it pleases him with whom I go, I will." He said, "If any of this flock, O son, stops even for an instant, he must lie still 100 years, not brushing off the fire that strikes him. Go then, I'll follow at your heel, and then rejoin my band, who walk in a choir, lamenting their eternal woes." Afraid to step down to his level from where we were, I bent my head, as in reverence. He said, "What destiny or fortune makes you come before your final day? And who is this guide?" "In the bright life above," I answered him. "I came into a valley and lost my way, before my age had reached its ripening time. I turned my back on the place but yesterday. He appeared to me at dawn, when I had turned to go back down, and this path is the way by which he leads me home." Then he returned, "If you keep navigating by your star, you'll find a glorious port, if I discerned well in the fair life. Had my years been more, so I could witness how heaven had been kind to you, I would have wished your work good cheer. But that ungrateful, malignant folk who descend from those brought down from Fiesole years ago, and who still smack of mountains and rocky ground, will make themselves, for good things that you do, your enemies. And there is reason in that. Among the bitter sorb trees it seems undue when the sweet fig in season comes to fruit. The world's old saying is that they are blind, a people greedy, envious, proud. See fit to cleanse their habits from yourself. You'll find your fortune holds such honour as will induce one party and the other to contend in hunger to consume you. Then the grass will be well kept at a distance from the goat. Let the Fiesolan beasts go find their mess by feeding on themselves, and spare the shoot, if any still should grow on their heap of dung, in which the sacred seed is living yet of Romans, who remained when Florence went wrong, becoming a nest for the malevolent." "Could I have everything for which I long, you would not still endure this banishment away from human nature," I replied. "Your image, dear, fatherly, benevolent, being fixed inside my memory, has imbued my heart, when in the fair world, hour by hour, you taught me patiently, it was you who showed the way man makes himself eternal. Therefore, the gratitude I feel toward you makes fit that while I live, I should declare it here. And what you tell me of my future, I write, and keep it with another text as well, till both are glossed by a lady of good wit and knowledge, if I reach her. This much still I say, so long as conscience is not betrayed, I am prepared for fortune to do her will. My ears find nothing strange in what you have said. As fortune pleases, let her wheel be turned, and as he must, let the peasant turn his spade." When he heard these words, my master's head inclined towards the right, and looking at me, he said, "He who has listened well will understand." And nonetheless I continued as I had in speech with Ser Brunetto. Would he tell which among his companions had enjoyed most eminence and fame in life? "It is well," he answered, "for me to say the names of some, but nothing of the rest. To name them all would demand speaking more words than we have time. All clerics and men of letters, all renowned, and in the world all stained by this one crime. Priscian trudges in that unhappy band, as does Francesco da Corso. And if you crave to see such scurf, among them you can find one whom the servant of servants asked to leave the Arno for Bacchiglione, and there he left his body distended in its nerve and muscle. And now, although I would say more, my speech and walking with you must be brief. On the sand I see new smoke arise, where appear new souls with whom I must not be. I live in my tesoro, your judgment being one for it. I ask no more. And he went off, seeming to me like one of those who run, competing for the green cloth in the races upon Verona's field, and of them like one who gains the victory, not one who loses. Behold the beast that has the pointed tail, that crosses mountains, leaves walls and weapons broken, and makes the stench of which the world is full. So did my leader address me, then paused to beckon him ashore, near where the causeway came to an end. And fraud's foul emblem came closer, till he had taken his head and chest from the deep, to rest on land before us, not drawing his tail up onto the bank. His face was a just man's face, outwardly kind. And he was like a serpent all down his trunk. He had 2 paws, both hairy to the armpits. His back and breast and both sides down to the shank were painted with designs of knots and circlets. No Tartar or Turk has ever woven a cloth more coloured in field and figure, nor were the nets arachne loomed. The way beached boats are both on land and partly in water, or the way the beaver squats to battle fish to the death in the deep-drinking German's land, so lay that worst of beasts upon the edge of stone that bounds the sand. His tail was quivery and restless in the void where it hung down, squirming its venomed fork with an upward twist, armed like a scorpion. Now we must incline our path a little, as far as the evil beast that crouches over there, my master said. So we descended on the right and paced 10 steps along the edge to keep well wide of sand and flames. Coming to where he was, I saw on the sand, just on from where we stood, some people sitting near the open space. The master said, "To experience this ring fully, go forward. Learn what their state is, but let your conversation not be long, till you return our parley with this beast, so we may borrow his shoulders." I went along the 7th circle's margin alone, and passed to where those doleful people sat. Their woes burst from their eyes. Their hands were doing their best to shield them from the torments, shifting place from here to there. One moment from falling flames, the next the burning ground, just like the ways of dogs in summer when they scratch, sometimes with paw and others with muzzle. They behaved as though fleas or flies or gadflies bit their limbs. When I grew closer to the people grieved by the flames falling on them, I did not find any I recognized, but I perceived each had a purse hung around his neck, adorned with certain colors, and a certain device, which each of them with hungry eyes consumed. Looking among them, I saw a yellow purse that bore a lion in azure. Looking farther, I saw another, blood red, that showed a goose depicted in a color whiter than butter. Then one of them, whose wallet, which was white, displayed a pregnant sow portrayed in azure, said to me, "What are you doing in this pit? Be off with you. And since you are living, know my neighbor Vitaliano will come to sit here on my left. These Florentines din me so because I am a Paduan. Often they cry, 'Bring on the sovereign knight whose sack will show 3 goats.'" With that he twisted his mouth awry in a perverse grimace, and like an ox licking its nose, thrust out his tongue at me. Then, fearing that a longer stay might vex him who had cautioned that the time I spent with them be brief, I left those worn-out souls, and found my leader already on our mount. Seated upon that savage creature's back, he said, "Be bold and strong, for now the descent must be by such a stairway. The place you take should be in front, so I can come between to protect you from the tail." Like those who shake, feeling the quartan fever coming on, the nails already blue so that they shiver at the mere sight of shade, such I was then. But shame rebuked me, which makes a servant braver in a good master's presence. I took my seat upon those ugly shoulders. I did endeavor, but my voice would not come the way I thought, to say, "Be sure you hold me tight." But he, who'd rescued me from other dangers, put his 2 strong arms around me to steady me, as soon as I had mounted up, commanding, "Geryon, move ahead, but carefully. Keep your arcs wide. Go slowly when descending, being mindful of this new burden that you bear." As a boat moves back and back to leave its landing, so slowly did Geryon withdraw from shore. Then, when he felt himself quite free, he turned and brought his tail to where its foreparts were, and stretching it out, he moved it, so it churned the way a swimming eel does, and his paws gathered the air toward him. When Phaeton spurned the rain so that the sky, as one still sees, was scorched, I doubt that there was greater fear, nor when pathetic Icarus felt his thighs unfeathering from the melting wax to hear his father crying, "You are falling now!" than mine, perceiving I was in sheer air, surrounded by it, and realizing I saw nothing at all around me but the beast. Onward he swam, with motion more and more slow, as he wheeled round, ascending. But that I guessed only by feeling the wind against my face and from below. On our right, the sound increased from the whirlpool, roaring horribly under us. I stretched my head out forward, looking down, growing more frightened even than I was, because as we descended I heard the din of lamentations, and I could see the fire. And so I shook, the more tightly holding on. And I saw then, I had not seen it before, that he was wheeling and making his descent, for the great torments now were drawing near on every side. As a falcon being sent stays on the wing, seeing no lure or bird a long while, making the falconer lament, "Ah me, you are sinking now," and comes down tired with many wheelings where it swiftly set out, and alights peeved and sullen far from its lord, so Geryon circled and landed at the foot of the jagged rock. And once unburdening his shoulders of our bodies, he did not wait, but vanished like an arrow from the string. And so we went from bridge to bridge, and spoke of things which my commedia does not mean to sing. We reached the summit, stopping to look at the next fissure of Malebolgia, the vain lamenting that was next, and what I beheld was an astounding darkness. As is done in winter, when the sticky pitch is boiled in the Venetian arsenal, to cork their unsound vessels while no ship can be sailed, and so instead one uses the time to make his ship anew, another one repairs much voyaged ribs, and some with hammers strike the prow, and some the stern, and this one makes oars, while that one might twist rope, another patch the jib and mainsail. So, not by any fires, but by some art of heaven, a heavy pitch was boiling there below, which overglued the banks on every side. I saw that much, but could see nothing in it but the flood of bubbles the boiling raised, and the whole mass swelling and settling. While I stared down, my guide, crying, "Watch out, watch out," pulled me across towards him from where I stood. I turned my head like someone eager to find out what it is he must avoid, who, finding himself dismayed by sudden fear while he is turning back, does not delay his flight. What I beheld, hurrying from behind us up the rock, was a black demon. Ah, in his looks a brute, how fierce he seemed in action, running the track with his wings held outspread and light of foot. Over one high, sharp shoulder he had thrown a sinner, carrying both haunches' weight on the one side, with one hand holding on to both the ankles. Reaching our bridge, he spoke,
"Oh, Malebranche, here is another one of Santa Zita's elders. While I go back to bring more from his homeland, thrust him below. His city gives us an abundant stock. Every citizen there except Bonturo practice barratry, and given cash they can contrive a yes from any no."
He hurled the sinner down, then turned to rush back down the rocky crag, and no mastiff was ever more impatient to shake the leash and run his fastest after a flying thief. The sinner sank below, only to rise rump up, but demons under the bridge's shelf cried,
"Here's no place to show your sacred face. You're not out in the Circio for a swim. If you don't want to feel our hooks like this, then stay beneath the pitch."
They struck at him with over 100 hooks and said,
"You'll need to dance in secret here, so grab what scam you're able to in darkness."
Then they did just as cooks have their scullions do to steep the meat well into the cauldron, with a prod from their forks, keeping it from floating up. My good guide said, "So it will not be seen that you are here. Find some jagged outcrop and crouch behind it to give yourself a screen. No matter what offenses they offer me, do not be frightened. I know how things are done here. Once before I was in such a fray." And then he passed beyond the bridge's head, and coming to the 6th bank, suddenly he needed to keep a steady front. They bayed and rushed at him with all the rage and uproar of dogs that charge some wretched vagabond who suddenly is forced to plead. They tore from under the bridge and raised their forks at him, but he cried, "Not so savage! Before you dare to touch me with your forks, choose one to come forward to hear me out, and then decide whether to hook me." They all cried out one name.
"Did Malakota go?"
So the others stood while one strode forward to him, sneering,
"What good will it do him?"
So the master said, "Do you, O Malacoda, think I could get through all of your defenses safely as this, except by heaven's will and happy fate? Now, let us pass, for heaven also decrees that I should show another this savage road." The demon's pride fell so much he let loose his hook, which fell down at his feet, and said,
"Now, no one strike him."
To me, my leader called, "Now you may come back safely to my side, you who crouch squatting behind the splintered shield of stone upon the bridge." At this I stirred and quickly joined him, and the devils milled towards us, pressing forward, so that I feared they might not keep the pact. So once I saw the soldiers frightened when they removed their guard out of Caprona by treaty, as they withdrew, passing among so many enemies. I kept as close by my guide as I could go, and all the while I did not take my eyes away from their expressions, which were not good. They lowered their hooks, but I heard one give voice.
"Should I just touch him on the rump?"
Replied the others.
"Yes, sir. Go on and give him a cut."
But the demon who was talking with my guide turned around instantly on hearing that, saying,
"Hold! Hold, Scarmiglione!"
To us he said,
"You can't go farther by this route, because along this ridge the sixth arch lies all shattered at the bottom. But if you still wish to go forward, a ridge not far from this does have a place where you can cross at will. It was yesterday, 5 hours later than now, that the 1266th year fell since the road here was ruined. I'm sending a crew out of my company in that direction to see if sinners are taking the air. You go with them, for they'll not harm you in any fashion. Come, Alecchino and Calcabrina, and you, Cagnazzo, and to be the captain of all 10, Barbariccia, and in the squad take Libicocco and Draginazzo and Ciriato with his tusky head, and also Graffiacani and Farfarello and crazy Rabicante. Search all round the pools of boiling tar, and see these two get safely over to where the dens are spanned by the next ridge, whose ark is undestroyed."
"Oh me, oh master, what do I see?" I groaned. "We need no escort if you know the road, and as for me, I want none. If you are cautious, as is your custom, then how can you avoid seeing them grind their teeth and with ferocious brows threaten to do us harm?" And he returned, "I tell you, have no fear. It is the wretches who boil here that they menace, so let them grind as fiercely as they like and scowl their worst." And then the company of devils turned, wheeling along the left-hand bank. But first, each signaled their leader with the same grimace, baring their teeth, through which the tongue was pressed. And the leader made a trumpet of his ass. The thief held up his hands when he was through, and, "God," he cried, making the fig with both, "take these, I aim them squarely up at you." The serpents were my friends from that time forth, for then one coiled itself about his neck as if to say, "That's all then from your mouth," and another went around his arms to snake them tight and cinch itself in front, so tied they couldn't budge enough to gesture. Alack, Pistoia, Pistoia! Why haven't you decreed your own incineration so that you dwell on earth no more, since you surpass your seed in evil-doing? In all the circles of hell I saw no spirit so arrogant to God, not even him who fell from the Theban wall. Speaking no more then, Vanni Fucci fled, and next I saw a centaur full of rage. "Where is he? Where is the bitter one?" he cried as he charged up. I think more snakes than lodge in Marema's swamp were riding on his croup, swarming along his back up to the edge of our human form. He bore behind his nape, along the shoulders, a dragon, with wings spread wide. If any blocked the path, it burned them up. This centaur's name is Cacus, my master said, who underneath the stones of Aventine many a time has made a lake of blood. He doesn't walk the same road as his clan because by theft and fraud he tried to get the splendid herd that lay near him, a sin that ended his crooked habits. He died for it. When Hercules' club rained onto his head some 100 blows, he lived to feel 10 hit. While he was saying this, a centaur sped beyond us, and 3 new spirits appeared below. They went unnoticed by me or by my guide until they shouted to us, "Who are you?" At which we ceased our talk and turned to them. I did not know them, but as people do when chance disposes, one had some cause to name another. "Where have we left Chanfa?" he said. To be sure my leader heard, I signaled him to stay alert with a finger that I laid from chin to nose. Listener, if you are slow to credit what I tell you next, it should be little wonder, for I who saw it know that I myself can hardly acknowledge it. While I was staring at the sinners below, a serpent darted forward that had 6 feet, and facing one of the 3, it fastened on him all over. With the middle feet it got a grip upon the belly. With each forelimb it clasped an arm. Its fangs gripped both his cheeks. It spread its hind feet out to do the same to both his thighs, extending its tail to flex between them upward through to the loins behind. No ivy growing in a tree's bark sticks as firmly as the horrid beast entwined its limbs around the other. Then, as if made out of hot wax, they clung and made a bond and mixed their colors. And neither could be construed as what it was at first. So, as the track of flame moves over paper, there is a shade that moves before it that is not yet black, and the white dies away. The other 2 were looking on and cried,
"Ah me, now look at how you change, Aniello. Already you are neither 2 nor 1.
Now the 2 heads had become one. We watched the 2 shapes grow into one face where both were lost. The sides grew 2 arms, fused from length that had been 4. Thighs, legs, chest, belly merged, and in their steads grew members that were never seen before. All of the former features were blotted out, a perverse shape, with both not what they were, yet neither. Such its pace deliberate, it moved away. The way a lizard can dash under the dog-day scourge, darting out between the hedges so that it seems a flash of lightning if it spurts across the road, so did a fiery little serpent rush towards the bellies of the 2 who stayed. Peppercorn black and livid, it struck out, transfixing one in the place where we are fed where life begins, then fell before his feet outstretched. The pierced one gazed at it and stood, not speaking, only yawning, as if a fit of sleep or fever had taken him. He eyed the serpent him. From this one's wound and that one's mouth, smoke violently flowed, and their smoke met. Let Lucan now attend in silence, who has told the wretched fates of Nasidius and Sabellus, till he has learned what I will let fly next. And Ovid, who writes of Cadmus and Arethusa, let him be still. For though he, in his poet craft, transmutes one to a serpent, and makes the other spill transformed into a fountain, I envy him not. He never transformed 2 individual front-to-front natures, so both forms as they met were ready to exchange their substance. The twain reacted mutually. The reptile split its tail to make a fork. The wounded one conjoined his feet. The legs and thighs were pressed so tight no mark of juncture could be seen. The split tail took the shape the other lost. Its skin grew softer, and the other's hard. I saw the arms draw inward to be encased inside the armpits. The animal's feet appeared to lengthen as the other's arms grew less. The hind paws, twisting together like a cord, became the member man conceals. From his the wretch had grown 2 feet. While the smoke veils each one with colors that are new, and grows hair here and strips it there, the one shape falls and one comes upright. But neither turned aside the unholy lights that stared above the muzzles they each were changing. The one who newly stood drew his in towards the temples, and from the spare matter from that, ears issued from the head behind smooth cheeks. What didn't course to an ear but was retained became the face's nose, and flesh the lips to the thickness they should bear. He that lay prone propelled his nose and face forward, and shrank his ears back into the head as a snail does its horns. The tongue that was whole and prepared for speech was split instead, and in the other the forked tongue formed one piece, and the smoke ceased. The soul that had been made a beast fled down the valley with a hiss. The other, speaking now, spat after it, turning his new shoulders on it to address the third, and said,
I'll have Buoso trot on all fours down this road, as I have done.
And so I saw that seventh dead weight transmute and mutate, and may its strangeness excuse my pen if it has tangled things. And though my eyes were somewhat in confusion at the scene, my mind somewhat bewildered, yet none of these could flee to hide himself so secretly that I could not distinguish well the face of Puccio Sciancato, who of the three companions that we first took notice of alone was not transformed. The other was he whose death, Gavil, you have good cause to grieve. The flame already was quiet and erect again, done speaking, and, as the gentle poet allowed, leaving us, when, behind it, another one was drawing near, the confused sound it made drawing our eyes towards its flickering tip. As the Sicilian bull, which bellowed loud for the first time when he who gave it shape with his file's art was forced to give it his voice justly, would use a victim's cries, sealed up inside its body, to bellow so that, though brass, it seemed transfixed with pain when it was heated. So, having at first no passage or egress from fire, the melancholy words were transmuted into fire's language. But after the words had found their passage through the tip, and it vibrated as the tongue had in trying to form their sound, we heard it say, O you toward whom I guide my voice, and who a moment ago intoned in Lombard, now continue on your road, I do not ask you more. Though I may be late in my coming here, don't be annoyed to stop and speak. You see that I am free of annoyance, though I burn. If you just fell into this viewless world from Italy, sweet land above, from which I carry all my guilt, then tell me, is it peace or war that occupies the Romagnolas? I hail from the hill country between Urbino and where, high up the ridge, the Tiber has its source. I was still crouched and intently giving ear when my guide nudged me, saying, You may discourse with him. He is Italian. Already prepared to answer, I said, That Romagna of yours, O soul concealed below, is not yet cleared, and never was in her tyrant's heart, of war. Though, when I left, no war had been declared. Ravenna still remains as many a year, Polenta's eagle brooding above the town, so its wings cover Cervia. The land that bore the long siege once, and struck the Frenchmen down into a bloody heap, finds itself now held underneath the green paws once again. Both the old mastiff and new of Verrucchio, who treated Montagna in an evil way, sink their teeth in the way they always do. Along the Santerno and the Limone lie cities the lionet of the white lair rules, who changes sides and shifts his loyalty from summer to winter. And the town that feels the Savio bathe its flank, just as it lies between a plain and mountains, also dwells somewhere between tyranny's and freedom's way. And now I pray you, tell us who you are. Don't be more grudging than another was in answering you, so may your name endure proudly in the world above. After the fire roared in its way a while, it began to stir its sharp tip rapidly, first here, then there, then formed this breath. If I believed I gave my answer to one who'd ever go once more back to the world, this tongue of flame would have no motion. But since, if what I hear is true, none ever return from this abyss alive, not fearing infamy, I will answer you. I was a man of arms, and after that became a corded friar, hopeful to do penance by wearing the rope. Indeed, that thought might well have been fulfilled, but the high priest, may evil befall him, led me to commit again the sins that I had practiced at first. And how and why, now listen, and I'll disclose. My actions, when my form was still encased in the flesh and bones my mother gave me, were those of the fox, not the lion. I was expert in all the stratagems and covert ways, and practiced them with so much cunning art the sound extended to the earth's far end. But when I saw that I had reached that part of life when we should let our sails descend and coil the ropes, then what had pleased me before now grieved me. Penitent and confessed, I joined an order, and, woe to say, my life as friar would have availed me. The prince of New Pharisees, near by the Lateran, was making war, and not against the Saracens or Jews, his enemies all being Christians. And none had been at Acre's conquest, nor one of those who went as merchants to the Sultan's domain. And he respected neither the supreme office and holy orders that were his own, nor in me the friar's cord, which at one time made those who wore it leaner. As Constantine sought out Sylvester in Soracte, his aim to have him cure his leprosy, this man came seeking me as one who meant to find a doctor to cure the fever he was in of pride. He asked my counsel, and I remained silent because his words seemed drunk to me. And then he spoke again. Now, understand, your heart should not respond mistrustfully, for I absolve you in advance henceforth. Instruct me, so that I can find a way to level Palestrina to the earth. I have the power to lock and unlock heaven, as you know, for the keys are two, whose worth seemed not dear to my predecessor. Then, driven to where the gravity of his argument made silence seem worse counsel, I said, Given, Father, that you are washing me of the taint of this sin into which I now must fall, large promises with fulfillments that are scant will bring your high throne triumph over all. And Francis came for me the moment I died, but one of these black cherubim of hell appeared, and do not carry him off, it said. Do not deprive me. He must be carried down among my servants because he counseled fraud. And I have hovered near his hair since then, until this moment, for no one has absolution without repenting. Nor can one will a sin and repent at once, because the contradiction precludes it. How I shuddered! Oh, wretched me! Perhaps you did not think I was a logician, he said, and took me and carried me away to Minos, who coiled his tail 8 times around his scaly back and gnawed it angrily, and then declared, This wicked one is bound for the fire of thievery. So I am lost where you see me wander, in this garment wound bitter to myself. And as his discourse ceased, the grieving flame departed, its horn's sharp point tossing about and twisting as it passed. We journeyed on, my leader and I, and went to the next arch of the ridge, and looking under we saw the fosse where they pay the due amount who earned their burden by splitting things asunder. Who could find words, even in free-running prose, for the blood and wounds I saw in all their horror? Telling it over as often as you choose, it's certain no human tongue could take the measure of those enormities. Our speech and mind, straining to comprehend them, flail and falter. If all the Apulians, who long ago mourned their lives cut off by Trojans, could live once more, assembled to grieve again, with all those stained by their own blood in the long Carthaginian war, rings pillaged from their corpses, poured by the bushel, as Livy writes, who never was known to err, and they who took their mortal blows in battle with Robert Guiscard, and those whose bones were heaped at Ceperano, killed in the Pulian betrayal, and the soldiers massacred in the stratagem shaped by old Alado, who conquered without a weapon near Tagliacozzo, where their army was trapped. And some were showing wounds still hot and open, others the gashes where severed limbs had been. It would be nothing to equal the mutilation I saw in that 9th chasm. No barrel staved in, and missing its end piece, ever gaped as wide as the man I saw split open from his chin down to the farting place. And from the splayed trunk, the spilled entrails dangled between his thighs. I saw his organs, and the sack that makes the bread we swallow turn to shit. Seeing my eyes fastened upon him, he pulled open his chest with both hands, saying, "Look how Mohammed claws and mangles himself, torn open down the breast. Look how I tear myself. And Ali goes weeping before me, like me, schismatic and cleft, split open from the chin along his face up to the forelock. All you see here, when alive, taught scandal and schism. So they are cleaved like this. A devil waits with a sword back there to carve each of us open afresh each time we've gone our circuit round this road, where while we grieve our wounds close up before we pass him again. But who are you that stand here, perhaps to delay torments pronounced on your own false words to men?" "Neither has death yet reached him, nor does he stay for punishment of guilt," my master replied, "but for experience. And for that purpose I, who am dead, lead him through hell as rightful guide from circle to circle. Of this you can be as sure as that I speak to you here at his side." More than 100 shades were gathered there, who, hearing my master's words, had halted, and came along the trench toward me in order to stare, forgetting their torment in wonder for a time. "Tell Fra Dulcino, you who may see the sun, if he wants not to follow soon to the same punishment, he had better store up grain against the winter siege and the snow's duress, or the Novarese will easily bring him down." After he had lifted his foot to resume the pace, Mohammed spoke these words, and having spoken, he stepped away again on his painful course. Another there, whose face was truly broken, the throat pierced through, the nose cut off at the brow, one ear remaining, stopped and gazed at me, stricken with recognition as well as wonder. "Ah, you," his bleeding throat spoke, "you here, yet not eternally doomed here by guilt. Unless I'm deceived, I knew your face when I still walked above in Italy. If you return to the sweet plain I knew well, that slopes towards Marcabo from Vercelli, remember Pier da Medicina, and tell Ser Guido and Angiolello, the 2 best men of Fano, if we have foresight here in hell, then by a tyrant's treachery they will drown off La Cattolica, bound and thrown in the sea from their ships. Neptune has never seen, between Cyprus and Majorca, whether committed by pirates or Argives, such a crime. The betrayer, who sees from one eye only, he holds a city found bitter by another who's with me here, will lure them to set sail for truce talks. Then, when he has dealt with us, they'll need no prayer for safe winds near Fakara, not ever again." Then I to him, "If you'd have me be the bearer of news from you to those above, explain, what man do you mean who found a city bitter?" Then he grasped one shade near him by the jaw, and opened the mouth and said, "This is the creature. He does not speak who once in exile knew words to persuade Caesar at the Rubicon, affirming to help him thrust his doubt below, delaying when he's ready, hurts a man." I saw how helpless Curio's tongue was cut to a stub in his throat, whose speech had been so keen. One with both hands lopped off came forward to shout, stumps raised in the murk to spatter his cheeks with blood.
Also remember Moscow. I too gave out a slogan urging bloodshed when I said, once done, it's done with. Words which were seeds of pain for the Tuscan people.
Then, when he heard me add, and death to your family line, utterly undone by sorrow heaped upon his sorrow, the soul went away like one whom grief has made insane. I stayed to see more, one sight so incredible as I should fear to describe, except that conscience, being pure in this, encourages me to tell. I saw, and writing it now my brain still envisions, a headless trunk that walked in sad promenade, shuffling its dolorous track with its companions. And the trunk was carrying the severed head, gripping its hair like a lantern, letting it swing. And the head looked up at us. "Oh, me!" it cried. He was himself and his lamp as he strode along, 2 in 1 and 1 in 2, and how it can be only he knows who so ordains the thing. Reaching the bridge, the trunk held the head up high so we could hear his words, which were, "Look well, you come breathing to view the dead, and say if there is punishment harder than mine in hell. Carry the word and know me, Bertrand de Born, who made the Father and the Son rebel, the one against the other. By the evil turn I did the young king, counselling him too ill. David and Absalom had nothing worse to learn from the wickedness contrived by Achitophel. Because I parted their union, I carry my brain parted from this, its pitiful stem. Mark well this retribution that you see is mine." If I had harsh and grating rhymes to befit that melancholy hole which is the place all other rocks converge and thrust their weight, then I could more completely press the juice from my conception. But since I lack such lines, I feel afraid as I come to speak of this. It is not jokingly that one begins to describe the bottom of the universe. Not a task suited for a tongue that whines mama and dada. May the muses help my verse, as when they helped Amphion wall Thebes, so that word not diverge from fact as it takes its course. O horde, beyond all others ill begot, who dwell in that place, so hard to speak about, better for you to be born a sheep or goat. When we were deep in the darkness of the pit beneath the giant's feet, much farther down, and I still gazed back up at the high wall of it,
"Watch how you step,"
I heard a voice intone.
"Be careful that you do not set your feet on the weary, wretched brothers' heads."
Whereon I turned, and saw before me and underfoot a lake that ice made less like water than glass. In Austria never has the Danube set so thick a veil above its current as this, nor under its cold sky has the far-off dawned. Had Mount Tambernick fallen to strike that ice, or Pietrapana, it would not even then creak even at its edge. As the frog lies snout above water to croak in the season when the peasant woman often has reveries of gleaning, spirits, livid to where the cheeks turn colour with shame, were locked inside the ice, teeth chattering the note a stork's beak makes. Each held his face turned down. They testified cold by their mouths and misery by the looks their eyes bore. After a time, while I surveyed the scene around me, I glanced down at my feet and saw 2 shades there, packed in head to head so tightly that their hair was interknit. "Oh, you whose breasts are pressed together," I said, "who are you?" They bent back their necks at that, and having raised their faces to me, they shed tears, welling now from eyes already moist, to flow down over their lips, where the frost glued each to the other, ever more tightly fused. Iron clamps never held beam to beam so fast. And like two goats, each butted the one he faced in a helpless rage. Another, who had lost both ears to frost, spoke with his face still down. "Why stare at us so long? If you insist on knowing who these two are, the valley wherein Vicensio's stream begins its long descent once was their father Albert's and their own. They issued from one body, and if you went all over Caina, you could not find a shade worthier to be frozen in punishment. Not him whose breast and shadow the impaling blade in Arthur's hand pierced with one stroke, nor him they called Focaccia, nor this other whose head so blocks me I can see no farther. His name, Sassol Mascaroni, is one you recognize if you are Tuscan. And so you need not claim any more speech of me. My own name was Camichon de Pazzi, and this is where I await Carlino's coming to make my sin seem less." I saw 1,000 faces after that, all purple as a dog's lips from the frost. I still shiver, and always will, at the sight of a frozen pond. All through the time we progressed towards the core where all gravity convenes. I quaked in that eternal chill, and next, I don't know whether by will or fate or chance, walking among the heads, I struck my foot hard in the face of one with violence that set him weeping as he shouted out, "Why trample me? And if you have not come to add more vengeance for Monteperti's defeat, then why do you molest me?" I turned from him. "Master," I said, "I pray you, wait for me here while I resolve a doubt concerning his name. Then you shall hurry me on as you desire." My leader stopped, and I addressed the shade, who was still cursing as bitterly as before. "And who are you who reviles another?" I said. "Nay, who are you?" he answered, "who thus contrive to go through Antenora, striking the head and cheeks of others, which even were you alive would be too much?" "Alive is what I am," I told him, "and if fame is what you crave, then you might value having me note your name among the others." He answered, "What I desire is quite the opposite. Get you gone, and come to trouble me no more, inept as you are, not knowing how to flatter at this great depth." Then I reached out and seized him by the hair, and shook his scruff. "Now name yourself forthwith, or not a hair will remain," I threatened him. He answered, "Though you pluck me bald in your wrath, I will not tell you, nor show you who I am. Not if you fall 1,000 times on my bait." Already I had twisted round my palm a length of hair, and pulled some clumps right out, and he was barking, with his eyes held down, when a new voice called, "Marco, what is it? What ails you? Are you so weary of the tune your jaws create, that now you are barking too? What devil is at you?" "Now," said I am done. I have no further need to speak with you, accursed traitor, for now, to your disgrace, I will report about you what is true." "Then go away," he answered. "Tell what you choose, but don't be silent if you do get out about that one so quick just now to use his tongue. Here he laments the silver he got from Frenchmen's hands. I saw him, you can declare, the man of Duera, down where the sinners are put to cool. And if they ask who else was there, the man of Beccaria is at your side, whose gullet was slit by Florence. Also here, a little further along your way, resides Gianni di Soldanieri with Ganelon, and Tabaldello, who opened Faenza wide while it was asleep." We had left him, moving on, when I saw 2 shades frozen in a single hole, packed so close, one head hooded the other one. The way the starving devour their bread, the soul above had clenched the other with his teeth where the brain meets the nape, and at the skull and other parts, as Tydeus, berserk with wrath, gnawed at the head of Menalippus, he chewed. "You, showing such bestial hatred for him beneath whom you devour, tell me your reason," I cried. "And on condition that your grievance is right, knowing both who you are and what wrong deed this one committed against you, I may yet repay you for whatever you may say up in the world above by telling it, if that with which I speak does not go dry." Pausing in his savage meal, The sinner raised his mouth and wiped it clean along the hair left on the head whose back he had laid waste. Then he began. You ask me to endure, reliving a grief so desperate. The thought torments my heart even as I prepare to tell it. But if my words are seeds with fruit of infamy for this traitor that I gnaw, I will both speak and weep within your sight. I don't know who you are that come here, or how, but you are surely Florentine to my ear. I was Count Ugolino, you must know. This is Archbishop Ruggieri. You will hear why I am such a neighbor to him as this, how through my trust and his devices I bore, first being taken, then killed, no need to trace, but things which you cannot have heard about, the manner of my death, how cruel it was, I shall describe. You can tell from that if he has wronged me. A slit in the Tower Mew, called Hunger's Tower after me, where yet others will be closed up, had let me view several moons already, when my bad dream came to me, piercing the future's veil right through. This man appeared as lord of the hunt. He came chasing a wolf and whelps on that high slope that blocks the Pisan's view of Lucca. With him his lean hounds ran, well-trained and eager. His troop, Gualandi, Sismondo, Lanfranchi, had been sent to ride in front of him. With no escape after a short run, the fathers and sons seemed spent. I saw their flanks that sharp fangs seemed to tear. I woke before dawn, hearing the complaint of my own children who were with me there, whimpering in their sleep and asking for bread. You grieve already, or truly cruel you are, as you think of what my heart began to dread. And if not now, then when do you shed a tear? They were awake now, with the hour when food was usually brought us drawing near, and each one apprehensive from his dream. And then I heard them nailing shut the door into that fearful tower, a pounding that came from far below. Hearing that noise, I stared into my children's faces, not speaking to them. Inside me I was turned to stone, so hard I could not weep. The children wept. And my little Anselmo, peering at me, inquired, "Father, what ails you?" And still I did not cry, nor did I answer, all that day and night until the next sun dawned. When one small ray found its way into our prison, and I made out in their 4 faces the image of my own, I bit my hands for grief. When they saw that, they thought I did it from my hunger's pain, and suddenly rose, "Father, our pain," they said, "will lessen if you eat us. You are the one who clothed us in this wretched flesh. We plead for you to be the one who strips it away." I calmed myself to grieve them less. We stayed silent through that, and then the following day. Oh, you hard earth, why didn't you open then? When we had reached the 4th day, Gaddo lay stretched at my feet where he had fallen down. "Father, why don't you help me?" he said, and died. And surely as you see me, so, one by one, I watched the others fall, till all were dead, between the 5th day and the 6th. And I, already going blind, groped over my brood, calling to them, though I had watched them die for 2 long days. And then the hunger had more power than even sorrow had over me. When he had finished, with a sideways stare, he gripped the skull again in his teeth, which ground strong as a dog's against the bone he tore. "Ah, Pisa, you shame the peoples of the fair land where sea is spoken. Slow as your neighbors are to punish you, may Gorgona shift its ground, and Caprea, till those islands make a bar to dam the Arno, and drown your populace, every soul in you. Though Ugolino bore the fame of having betrayed your fortresses, still it was wrong in you to so torment his helpless children. You Thebes of latter days, their youthful ages made them innocent. Uguccione, Brigata, and the two my song has named already. On we went, to where frost roughly swathes a people who, instead of downward, turn their faces up. There, weeping keeps them from weeping, for as they do, grief finds a barrier where the eyes would weep, but forced back inward adds to their agonies. A crystal visor of prior tears fills the cup below the eyebrow with a knot of ice. And though, as when a callus has grown numb, the cold had sucked all feeling from my face, I sensed a wind, and wondered from where it came. Master, who moves this? Is it not the case all vapors are extinguished in this realm? Soon, he responded, you will reach a place where your own eyes, beholding what source this blast is poured by from above, will answer this. And then one wretch, encased in the frozen crust, cried out to us, O soul so cruel that here of all the stations you're assigned the last, lift the hard veils away from my face, I implore, so that before the weeping freezes again I can release a little of this despair and misery that swell my heart. Whereon I said, if you would have me help you, disclose to me who you are. If I don't help you, then may I be sent to the bottom of the ice. He answered, I am Fra Alberigo, the man of fruit from the evil garden. In this place I get my payment, date for fig. Oh, then, I said to him, you are already dead? I do not know what state my body is in, nor how it fares in the world above, he said. But Ptolemaeus' privilege is this. Down to this place a soul is often conveyed before it is sent forth by Atropos, so that you may more winningly scrape the cowl of tears made hard as glass that coats my face. Know that as soon as a soul commits betrayal the way I did, a devil displaces it and governs inside the body until its toll of years elapses. Meanwhile, down to this vat, the soul falls headlong. So it could be true that this shade, wintering here behind me, yet appears above on earth too. You must know, if you were sent down only a short time past, he is Sir Brancadoria. It's years ago he first arrived here to be thus encased. Now you deceive me, for I am one who knows that Brancadoria is not deceased. He eats and drinks and sleeps and puts on clothes, I told him. And he answered, in the ditch ruled by the Malebranche above, that seethes and bubbles with the lake of clinging pitch, the shade of Michel Zanka had not arrived when this, his killer, had a devil encroach his body, as did his kinsmen when they contrived together to perform their treachery and take his place in it. Now, as I craved, reach out your hand and open my eyes for me. I did not open them, for to be rude to such a one as him was courtesy. Ah, Genoese, to every accustomed good, strangers, with every corruption amply crowned. Why hasn't the world expunged you as it should? For with Romagna's worst spirit I have found one of you, already, for deeds he was guilty of, bathed in Cocytus, in soul now underground, who in body still appears alive above. And now vexilla regis prodeunt inferni. Therefore, look, my master said, as we continued on the long descent, and see if you can make him out ahead. As though in the exhalation of heavy mist, or while night darkened our hemisphere, one spied a mill, blades turning in the wind, half lost, off in the distance. Some structure of that kind I seem to make out now. But at a gust of wind, there being no other shelter at hand, I drew behind my leader's back again. By now, and putting it in verse, I find fear in myself still, I had journeyed down to where the shades were covered wholly by ice, showing like straw in glass, some lying prone and some erect, some with the head towards us, and others with the bottoms of the feet. another like a bow bent feet to face. When we had travelled forward to the spot from which it pleased my master to have me see that creature whose beauty once had been so great, he made me stop and moved from in front of me. "Look, here is Dis," he said, "and here is the place where you must arm yourself with the quality of fortitude." How chilled and faint I was on hearing that! You must not ask me, listener. I do not write it. Words would not suffice. I neither died nor kept alive. Consider with your own wits what I, alike denuded of death and life, became as I heard my leader. The emperor of the realm of grief protruded from mid-breast up above the surrounding ice. A giant's height and mine would have provided closer comparison than would the size of his arm and a giant. Envision the whole that is proportionate to parts like these. If he was truly once as beautiful as he is ugly now, and raised his brows against his Maker, then all sorrow may well come out of him. How great a marvel it was for me to see 3 faces on his head. In front there was a red one. Joined to this, each over the midpoint of a shoulder, he had 2 others, all 3 joining at the crown. That on the right appeared to be a shade of whitish yellow. The third had such a mien as those who come from where the Nile descends. 2 wings spread forth from under each face's chin, strong and, befitting such a bird, immense. I have never seen at sea so broad a sail, unfeathered, bat-like, and issuing 3 winds that went forth as he beat them, to freeze the whole realm of Cocytus that surrounded him. He wept with all 6 eyes, and the tears fell over his 3 chins, mingled with bloody foam. The teeth of each mouth held a sinner, kept as by a flax rake. Thus he held 3 of them in agony. For the one the front mouth gripped, the teeth were as nothing to the claws which sliced and tore the skin until his back was stripped. "That soul," my master said, "who suffers most is Judas Iscariot. Head locked inside, he flails his legs. Of the other 2, who twist with their heads down, the black mouth holds the shade of Brutus, writhing, but not a word will he scream. Cassius is the sinewy one on the other side. But night is rising again, and it is time that we depart, for we have seen the whole." As he requested, I put my arms round him, and waiting until the wings were opened full, he took advantage of the time and place and grasped the shaggy flank, and, gripping still, from tuft to tuft, descended through the mass of matted hair and crusts of ice. And then, when we had reached the pivot of the thighs, just where the haunch is at its thickest, with strain and effort, my master brought around his head to where he'd had his legs, and from there on he grappled the hair as someone climbing would. So I supposed we were heading back to hell. "Cling tight, for it is stairs like these," he sighed like one who is exhausted, "which we must scale to part from so much evil." Then he came up through a split stone and placed me on its sill, and climbed up towards me with his cautious step. I raised my eyes, expecting I would see Lucifer as I left him, and saw his shape inverted, with his legs held upward. May they who are too dull to see what point I had passed judge whether it perplexed me. "Come, the way is long, the road remaining to be crossed is hard. Rise to your feet," the master said. "The sun is at mid-tierce." We had come to rest in nothing like a palace hall. Instead, a kind of natural dungeon enveloped us with barely any light, the floor ill-made. "Before I free myself from the abyss, my master," I said when I was on my feet, "speak and dispel my error. Where is the ice? And how can we be fixed head down like that? And in so short a time, how can it be possible for the sun to make its transit from evening to morning?" He answered me, "You imagine you are still on the other side, across the center of the earth, where I grappled the hair on the evil serpent's hide who pierces the world. And all through my descent you were on that side. When I turned my head and legs about, you passed the central point, to which is drawn from every side all weight. Now you are on the opposite continent, beneath the opposite hemisphere to that which canopies the great dry land therein. Under the zenith of that one is the site whereon the man was slain, who without sin was born and lived. Your feet this minute press upon a little sphere, whose rounded skin forms the Judeca's other outward face. Here it is morning, when it is evening there. The one whose hair was like a ladder for us is still positioned as he was before. On this side he fell down from heaven. The earth, which till then stood out here, impelled by fear, veiled itself in the sea, and issued forth in our own hemisphere. And possibly what now appears on this side fled its birth, and rushing upwards left a cavity, this hollow where we stand. There is below, as far from Beelzebub as one can be within his tomb, a place one cannot know by sight, but by the sound a little runnel makes as it wends the hollow rock its flow has worn, descending through its winding channel. To get back up to the shining world from there, my guide and I went into that hidden tunnel, and following its path, we took no care to rest, but climbed, he first, then I, so far through a round aperture I saw appear some of the beautiful things that heaven bears, where we came forth, and once more saw the star.
And with that, dear
Sinners, concludes another scenic stroll through the eternal fire pits. If you enjoyed your trip, remember to leave a 5-star review on whatever cosmic travel site you use. It helps us rank just above eternal darkness and unclean public restrooms. Keep your moral compass handy and your asbestos underwear closer, because I left mine up there. This is Max Calloway signing off from somewhere deep in the static between worlds, reminding you the only difference between here and topside is the rent's cheaper down here. And if you're listening to this, you're one of us.